The strong survive alone, the weak die forgotten. That's what Cale's father growled into his ear the night he became alpha. But when Cale found himself cradling a dying pup in his massive arms, surrounded by the ghosts of his slaughtered pack, he would learn that the cruelest death isn't starvation, it's surviving when everyone you love is ash and memory, and the only heartbeat left in the world is too small to last the night. The full moon watched through shattered windows as the giant alpha pressed his scarred muzzle against the pup's cold fur, and for the first time in his brutal life, the most feared wolf in the Northern Territories began to prey. The Morning Ridge pack had been the largest in living memory, 200 wolves strong, their territory spanning 3 mountain ranges and 5 river valleys. They'd feared nothing. They'd bowed to no one. Now they were smoke. Cale stood in what remained of the great den. His 7-foot frame stooped beneath charred rafters that had once held the roof where he'd been born. His hands, large enough to crush stone, trembled as they sorted through debris. An hour of searching had yielded nothing but bodies and the stench of hunters' fire. They'd come at dawn, when the pack was sleepy and sated from the full moon run. Bullets first silver, naturally then fire to finish what the gun started. Cale had been at the northern border, investigating strange scents. By the time he'd heard the screams and raced back, the massacre was complete. 200 wolves, his mother, his 3 sisters, the pups from Spring's litter, the elders who'd taught him to track, the warriors who'd fought beside him, the Omega wolves who'd kept the peace with their gentle humor, all gone, all because someone had wanted the alpha dead, and humans had never been particular about collateral damage. Cale's wolf howled inside his chest, a sound of pure anguish that wanted to tear through his throat and shake the mountains. But he kept it locked down, silent. Grief was a luxury. First, he needed to find survivors. He'd searched for 6 hours now, found nothing but cooling bodies and shattered dreams, until he heard it. The sound was barely there, a whimper so faint it might have been wind through the wreckage, but Cale's ears were the sharpest in the pack. Had been the sharpest. He moved with impossible speed for something so large, throwing aside a collapsed wall section. There, in a pocket of space beneath what had been the nursery's stone fireplace, was a bundle of scorched blankets, and inside, a miracle. The pup couldn't have been more than 3 weeks old, male, by the scent. His fur was matted with soot and blood, none of it his own, Cale realized. Someone had shielded him with their body. The pup's eyes weren't even open yet. He mewed weakly, blindly seeking warmth that wasn't there. Cale lifted him with a gentleness that contradicted every inch of his scarred, battle-hardened exterior. The pup fit in one of his palms, so small, so impossibly fragile. "Hey, little warrior," Cale whispered, his voice cracking on the words. "I've got you." The pup nuzzled against his thumb, mouth working instinctively, searching for milk, and just like that, hope became horror. Cale's blood turned to ice as reality crashed down. The pup was starving, had probably been alone here for hours, maybe since the attack ended. At 3 weeks old, he needed milk. Frequently, or he'd die. There were no nursing females left. No pack females at all. Just Cale and a pup who wouldn't survive the night without nourishment he couldn't provide. No, Cale breathed. No. He'd survived the massacre. He'd survived losing everything. But watching this tiny life, this last fragment of his pack slowly fade because Cale couldn't save him, that would break something in him that could never be repaired. The pup whimpered again, weaker now. Cale made a decision. He ransacked what remained of the den with frantic desperation. There had to be something: bottles, formula, anything the nursery mothers kept for emergencies. Nothing. The fire had consumed it all. The village then. Morning Ridge had maintained cautious trade relations with the human settlement 10 miles east. Surely they'd have something: goat's milk, cow's milk, anything to keep the pup alive. Cale wrapped the pup in his torn shirt, holding the bundle against his chest where his body heat might buy them time. Then he ran. His wolf form would have been faster, but he couldn't shift while carrying the pup safely. So Cale ran on 2 legs, his massive strides eating up the forest floor, lungs burning, every second an eternity. The village appeared through the trees, and Cale's hope shattered again. Smoke rose from the buildings. Not the thick black of active fire, but the gray wisps of embers dying. The attack had come here too. He searched anyway, desperation overriding reason. But the general store was rubble. The homes were ransacked. Whoever had orchestrated the massacre had been thorough. They'd wanted to erase the Morning Ridge pack completely, and they'd nearly succeeded. Cale slumped against a destroyed wagon, the pup's whimpers growing fainter against his chest. The sun was setting, temperature dropping. Even with Cale's body heat, the pup wouldn't last much longer without food. "I'm sorry," Cale whispered to the tiny life in his arms. "I'm so sorry, little one. I don't know what to do." His father's words echoed in his memory. The strong survive alone. The weak die forgotten. "Fuck that," Cale growled. "You're not dying. You're not forgotten. You're the Morning Ridge Pack's future, and I won't let you." A sound cut through his vow. Footsteps. Approaching from the west, through the forest. Cale's body went rigid, every predator instinct flaring to life. He shifted the pup behind him, lips pulling back from canines that extended with his rage. If the hunters had come back to finish the job, they'd learn why Cale had been alpha. They'd learn it in blood and screaming. But the scent that reached him wasn't human. It was wolf, female, and something else, something that made Cale's breath catch. Milk. A figure emerged from the darkening forest, and Cale's world tilted sideways. She was beautiful in the way wild things are beautiful, all lean muscle and watchful eyes, her dark hair tangled with leaves, her simple dress torn and stained with travel. But it was her stance that struck him, protective, wary, ready to fight or flee. And her scent, God. Her scent told him everything. She was nursing, recently, which meant, "Where's your pup?" Cale demanded, voice harsh with suspicion, even as hope clawed at his chest. The she-wolf's eyes met his gray as storm clouds, deep as winter lakes, and in them, Cale saw a pain that mirrored his own. "Dead," she said simply. "Yours?" Cale's arms tightened around the bundle against his chest. "Dying." The word hung between them in the gathering dusk, a bridge built of shared loss and desperate need. The she-wolf's gaze dropped to the pup, and something shifted in her expression. Something soft and aching and fierce all at once. "How long?" she asked. "Hours without food, maybe since dawn." She stepped closer. Cale's wolf screamed at him to protect, to defend, but he forced himself still. This stranger held the only chance the pup had. "I can help," she said quietly, "if you'll let me." If stories like Cale's remind you that sometimes the strongest thing we can do is ask for help, subscribe to join others who believe that survival and strength can look like vulnerability and trust. Chapter 1. The Stranger's Mercy. Cale had been alpha for 5 years. In that time, he'd negotiated territorial disputes with packs 3 times his size. He'd faced down rogue wolves high on bloodlust. He'd even stared down a grizzly that had wandered into packlands during mating season. None of it had prepared him for the vulnerability of handing a dying pup to a stranger. "His name," the she-wolf said softly, kneeling beside the remains of the wagon. "Does he have one?" Cale's throat worked. "No. He's too young. Naming ceremony would have been at the full moon next month, when there was still a pack to hold ceremonies, when there were still elders to speak the old words, and mothers to weep with joy." The she-wolf's fingers were gentle as she unwrapped the pup from Cale's shirt. Her hands were smaller than his, but they moved with the confidence of someone who'd handled infants before. She examined the pup with clinical efficiency, checking his mouth, his belly, the way his tiny paws twitched. "He's dehydrated," she murmured. "Hypothermic, but strong. I can hear his heart, it's still fighting." "Can you?" Cale's voice cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. "Can you save him?" Those storm-gray eyes met his again, and Cale saw the weight she carried, saw the way grief had carved lines around her mouth that seemed too deep for her age. She couldn't have been more than 25, but she wore sorrow like a second skin. "I lost my daughter 3 days ago," she said, and the words were flat, emotionless, the kind of tone that came when the pain was too big for feeling. "Hunters attacked our den. Just me and her, we'd been alone since her father died last winter. I was out gathering herbs when they came." Cale's chest constricted. "I'm sorry." She was 4 weeks old. The she-wolf's fingers trembled as she stroked the pup's matted fur. "I came back to find her gone. They'd taken her body trophy. Probably. Proof of their kill. The rage that surged through Cale was so hot it nearly choked him. What kind of monster killed a nursing pup? What kind of evil did that? I tracked them for 2 days, she continued, her voice still that terrible, empty calm. Lost the trail at a river. Spent today wandering, trying to figure out what comes next when your entire reason for breathing is just gone. She looked up at him, and now there was something fierce burning in those gray depths. Then I smelled smoke, and ash, and a pack's death, and I thought maybe this is it. Maybe this is why I'm still here when she's not. Maybe I'm supposed to find something that needs what I have left to give. The pup mewed weakly, blindly nuzzling against her palm. He needs me, she whispered. And God help me, I need him too. I need someone to survive. I need someone to make this. She gestured to her chest, where Cale knew Milk would be building with nowhere to go, turning painful, mean something. Cale had been raised to trust his instincts. Right now, every instinct screamed that this woman was safe, that she was Pack, even if she wasn't his Pack, that she was the miracle he'd prayed for. What's your name? He asked. Sarah. Formerly of the Riverbend Pack, before they were wiped out 5 years ago. Since then, just Sarah. Cale. Alpha of. The words stuck in his throat. Former Alpha of the Morning Ridge Pack. Understanding flickered across her face. The massacre. I saw the smoke from the mountains. 200 wolves. 201. Cale looked at the pup. He's all that's left. Then he matters, Sarah said fiercely. He matters more than anything. She shifted, finding a clean spot against the wagon wheel, and cradled the pup against her. Her movements were practiced, instinctive, the muscle memory of motherhood that wouldn't fade just because the baby was gone. Cale turned away, giving her privacy, but he couldn't block out the sounds. The pup's desperate suckling, Sarah's soft gasp, relief and pain mixed together. The way she hummed something low and soothing, a lullaby meant for a daughter who'd never hear another song. He's feeding, Sarah said after a moment, and her voice was thick with tears. He's going to make it, Cale. Cale's knees nearly buckled with relief. He braced himself against a tree, letting his forehead rest against the rough bark, and finally, let himself feel it. The grief, the horror, the impossible weight of being the last adult of a pack that had been his entire world, and underneath it all, the thinnest thread of hope. The pup would live. This stranger with her own devastation had given them that gift. Thank you, Cale managed, his voice wrecked. Sarah, thank you. Don't thank me yet, she replied quietly. We're not safe here. Whoever did this, they might come back to verify the kill count. And a nursing female with a surviving pup? That's unfinished business. Cale straightened, his alpha instincts snapping back into focus. She was right. They were exposed, vulnerable, and the scent of milk would draw attention from more than just hunters. There's a cave system 3 miles north, he said. Hidden entrance, defensible position. My pack used it for emergency evacuations. Never got the chance to use it? No warning. They hit fast and thorough. Cale's hands clenched into fists. Professional job. Not random hunters, someone hired them. Someone who wanted Morning Ridge erased. Sarah's expression hardened. Then we move, now, before they come back to check their work. She stood carefully, the pup still nursing, and Cale got his first good look at her in the fading light. She was shorter than most she-wolves he'd known, but she moved with the efficiency of someone who'd survived alone. Her dress was torn, revealing claw marks on her shoulder, old wounds, mostly healed. You're injured, Cale said. 3 days old. From the hunters who took my daughter, I'm healing. She met his gaze steadily. I'm not weak. If that's what you're worried about, I'm worried about you collapsing before we reach safety, Cale countered. Let me carry supplies. You focus on the pup. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. There's a stream a mile east. I left my pack there, herbs, blankets, what little I managed to grab before I ran. We'll need it. I'll get it. You head north, follow the pine markers. Every 10th tree has a claw mark at eye level. Follow those to a rock formation that looks like a sleeping bear. The cave entrance is behind it. You trust me to find it alone? Cale looked at her, this stranger who'd materialized from the forest like an answer to a prayer, who carried her own devastation but still stopped to help. You came back when you heard a pup crying, he said simply. When you could have kept walking, when you had every reason to. Yeah, I trust you. Something shifted in Sarah's expression, a crack in the wall she'd built around herself. 1 hour, she said. If you're not at the cave in 1 hour, I'm coming to find you. Deal. She started to turn, then paused. Cale? The pup, we should name him. Not wait for ceremonies that aren't coming. He needs an identity. Something to fight for. Cale considered. Names had power in wolf culture. They shaped destiny, reflected character, honored lineage. Ash, he said finally. Because he rose from fire, because he's all that remains, and because from ash, new things grow. Sarah smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. Sad and beautiful and broken. Ash, she repeated, looking down at the nursing pup. Perfect. Welcome to the world, little Ash. We've got you now. Then she disappeared into the darkening forest, moving like smoke between the trees. Cale watched her go, then shifted his attention to the task at hand. 1 hour to retrieve supplies, check for followers, and make it to the cave. The strong survive alone, his father had said. But as Cale raced toward the stream, he couldn't help thinking that maybe, just maybe, his father had been wrong. Maybe the strong survived by knowing when to accept help. Maybe that's what made them strong in the first place. Chapter 2. The Cave of Ghosts. The cave was colder than Cale remembered. He arrived 15 minutes after Sarah, his arms loaded with her pack and supplies. He'd scavenged from the village, ruins, a dented pot, 3 intact blankets, a hunting knife with a chipped blade. Not much to rebuild a life with. But more than nothing, Sarah had already started a small fire near the cave's entrance, positioned so the smoke would dissipate through natural vents in the rock ceiling. Smart. No visible smoke trail meant no beacon for hunters. She sat cross-legged beside the flames, Ash sleeping against her chest, wrapped in the least scorched blanket Cale had found. The pup's breathing was steady now, his tiny belly full, his body warm. The transformation from the dying creature Cale had found was almost miraculous. He's beautiful, Sarah said softly as Cale approached. Even under all the soot and ash, Cale knelt beside them, close enough to feel the fire's warmth but not so close he'd crowd her. Up close, he could see Ash properly for the first time, the dark gray fur that would probably lighten to silver as he grew, the distinctive white patch on his chest that marked him as Morning Ridge bloodline, the way his tiny ears twitched even in sleep. He looks like his mother, Cale murmured. Elara. She was one of our best scouts, fast, clever, could track a rabbit through running water. His voice caught. She would have been an amazing parent. She died protecting him, Sarah said. It wasn't a question. The nursery fireplace collapsed in a way that shouldn't have been structurally possible. Someone, probably Elara, pulled it down deliberately, created an air pocket, shielded Ash with her body until the fire passed. Cale's hands clenched. She knew she was dying, and she used her last moments to save him. Sarah's fingers ghosted over Ash's sleeping form, reverent. Then we honor her by making sure her sacrifice meant something, by making sure he thrives. Cale met her eyes across the firelight, and something passed between them, an understanding that went deeper than words. They were both refugees now, both carrying the weight of the dead, both responsible for this tiny life that represented hope and heartbreak in equal measure. Tell me about your daughter, Cale said quietly. Sarah stiffened. For a long moment, he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, Luna. The name came out like a prayer. Her name was Luna. She had her father's eyes gold, like honey in sunlight. And she laughed. God, even at 4 weeks old, she'd laugh at everything. At shadows on the wall, at the way leaves sounded in the wind, at my terrible singing. A smile ghosted across her face, there and gone like mist. Her father Damon died defending our den from a rogue wolf last winter. Took a claw to the throat protecting me while I was pregnant. Bled out in my arms. Sarah's voice remained steady, but Cale could see the tremor in her hands. I delivered Luna alone, raised her alone. And I thought I was doing okay. I thought we'd make it. What happened 3 days ago? I left her sleeping to gather feverfew by the river. I was gone maybe 20 minutes. When I came back, Sarah's breath hitched. Blood. Everywhere. The den destroyed. And Luna. She stopped. Couldn't finish. They took her body. Cale supplied gently. Yes. Sarah looked down at Ash, her expression fierce and broken. So when I heard him crying in that wreckage, when I realized I could save him even though I couldn't save her, it felt like the universe giving me one more chance, one more reason not to walk into the river and let it take me. The raw honesty of that admission hit Cale like a physical blow. He understood it completely, that darkness that whispered about ending the pain, about joining the ones who'd gone ahead. I'm glad you didn't, he said. Walk into the river. Ash needs you. And he paused, surprised by what he was about to admit. I need you too. I don't know how to keep a pup alive. I don't know how to be anything except a warrior and an alpha, and there's no pack left to lead. You're keeping him alive right now, Sarah pointed out. You searched for survivors. You didn't give up even when it was hopeless. You put his needs before your grief. She tilted her head, studying him. That's not nothing, Cale. That's everything. Before Cale could respond, Ash stirred against Sarah's chest, making the small sounds that preceded crying. Sarah shifted immediately, adjusting her position, murmuring reassurances in a voice that had probably soothed Luna 1,000 times. Cale watched, mesmerized by the easy competence. This was a language he didn't speak, the soft tones, the gentle touches, the instinctive understanding of what a pup needed before he could articulate it. Will you teach me? The words came out before Cale could stop them. How to care for him, how to be what he needs. Sarah looked up, surprised. You want to learn infant care? Most male wolves consider it beneath them. Most male wolves have packs with nursing females and designated caregivers. I have you, and I won't take you for granted. Cale's jaw set. Ash is my responsibility, my pack. If something happens to you, I need to know how to keep him alive. Something in Sarah's expression softened. All right. First lesson. Reading his cues. Those little sounds he's making, that's I'm about to be hungry again. Pups this young eat constantly every 2 hours, sometimes more. Every 2 hours, Cale repeated, filing the information away like battle strategy. Got it. What else? For the next hour, Sarah walked him through the basics: how to check if Ash was too hot or cold, how to support his neck, the signs of illness versus normal infant fussiness. Cale absorbed it all with the same intensity he'd once applied to combat training. When Ash woke fully and began to cry in earnest, Sarah fed him again while Cale prepared a simple meal from the supplies they had. Dried meat, foraged berries, water from the cave's natural spring. It wasn't until they were eating in companionable silence that Sarah asked the question Cale had been dreading. What's your plan? Cale paused mid-bite. Plan? You're an alpha without a pack. I'm a lone wolf with nothing left to lose. We have a pup who'll need constant care for months. Sarah's gaze was direct, unflinching. What happens tomorrow? Next week? When winter comes? Cale set down his food, staring into the fire. He'd been deliberately not thinking about the future, focusing only on the next immediate need. But Sarah was right, they needed a plan. The hunters will be looking for confirmation that everyone's dead, he said slowly. When they don't find my body or ashes, they'll come back. We can't stay here long term. Where can we go? Packs don't take in refugees easily, especially not an unmated female with a pup and a deposed alpha. There's one place. Cale's voice was grim. The Shadow Peak Pack, 300 miles west. Their alpha Thorn was my father's blood brother. They honored alliance treaties with Morning Ridge for 3 generations. Will they take us in? Thorn will honor the debt to my father. But, Cale hesitated. But what? Shadow Peak operates differently than Morning Ridge did. They're more traditional, more rigid about hierarchy and bloodlines. Cale met her eyes. They'll see you as a lone wolf with unclear status. They'll see Ash as orphaned, without clear lineage claims. And they'll see me as a failed alpha who couldn't protect his pack. So they'll look down on all of us. Probably. But they'll keep us alive. They'll give Ash a chance to grow up safe. Cale's expression hardened. And while they do that, I'll hunt down whoever ordered the massacre of my pack. Sarah's eyebrows rose. Revenge? Justice, Cale corrected. Someone paid for professional hunters to wipe out 200 wolves. Someone wanted Morning Ridge's territory. Or our resources. Or me dead specifically. I need to know who. I need to know why. His voice dropped to a growl. And I need to make sure they never do this to another pack. That could take years. Then it takes years. Cale looked at Ash, sleeping peacefully in Sarah's arms. He deserves to grow up in a world where packs aren't slaughtered in their sleep, where pups aren't murdered for trophies. If tracking down the ones responsible is what it takes, then that's what I'll do. Sarah studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right. We go to Shadow Peak. We keep Ash safe. And we figure out who's responsible. We? Cale repeated. Did you think I'd just hand him off and walk away? Sarah's voice was sharp. I'm nursing him, Cale. That creates a bond. And beyond that. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I lost everything 3 days ago. You lost everything today. Maybe together, we can build something new. Not a pack, necessarily, but family. The three of us. Family. The word hit Cale with unexpected force. He'd had family parents, sisters, packmates, who'd been closer than blood. All gone now. But maybe Sarah was right. Maybe family wasn't just what you were born into. Maybe it was also what you chose. What you fought to protect. Family, he agreed quietly. The three of us. Sarah offered a small, tentative smile, the second real smile he'd seen from her. Then Ash started crying again, and Sarah laughed, a sound full of exhaustion and exasperation and something almost like joy. Welcome to parenthood, she said wryly. Where nothing is ever simple, and sleep is a distant memory. Cale found himself smiling back, despite everything. Despite the grief and the loss, and the impossible road ahead. I can handle it, he said. And looking at Sarah and Ash illuminated by firelight in this cold cave, Cale realized he meant it. They'd survived the worst day of their lives. They'd survive whatever came next too, together. Chapter 3. The First Night. Cale learned quickly that caring for a 3-week-old pup was harder than fighting off a grizzly. The grizzly, at least, eventually got tired. Ash did not. The first night in the cave was a blur of crying, feeding, and Cale's fumbling attempts to help. Every time he thought the pup had finally settled, Ash would wake up screaming, a sound far too large for such a tiny body. Is he supposed to cry this much? Cale asked around 3 a.m., his voice rough with exhaustion. Sarah, looking equally wrecked, adjusted Ash against her shoulder, rubbing his back in small circles. He's traumatized. He spent hours alone, cold, starving. His whole world is gone. Of course he's crying. The words hit Cale harder than they should have. Ash was crying for all the same reasons Cale wanted to howl at the moon: grief, fear, confusion about why everything safe had disappeared. What can I do? Cale asked, feeling helpless in a way combat had never made him feel. Talk to him. Let him hear your voice. Let him know he's not alone. Cale moved closer, kneeling beside them. Up close, Ash looked even smaller, all fragile bones and soft fur and blind trust that the world wouldn't hurt him again. Hey, little warrior, Cale murmured, his voice dropping to the gentle rumble he'd once used with his youngest sister. I know everything's scary right now. I know you don't understand what happened. But you're safe, Ash. Sarah and we've got you. Nothing's going to hurt you while we're here. Ash's crying didn't stop, but it quieted slightly enough that Cale felt a small surge of triumph. Keep going, Sarah encouraged. He's listening. So Cale kept talking. He told Ash about the Morning Ridge pack, how they'd run under full moons, how the elders told stories around winter fires, how the spring thaw always brought new hope. He told him about Alara, the brave mother who'd given everything to keep him alive. She was clever, Cale said softly, fast, fearless, and she loved you so much that her last act was protecting you. That's the kind of wolf you come from, Ash. That's the legacy you carry. Gradually, miraculously, Ash's cries faded to whimpers, then to silence. His tiny body relaxed against Sarah, exhaustion finally claiming him. "You're a natural," Sarah whispered. Cale shook his head. "I have no idea what I'm doing. None of us do. That's the secret of parenting, everyone's just guessing and hoping they don't screw up too badly." Sarah shifted carefully, settling Ash into a nest of blankets near the fire. "Get some rest. I'll take first watch. We should split it, 2-hour shifts. Cale, you've been running on adrenaline and grief for 18 hours. Sleep. I'll wake you if anything happens." He wanted to argue, but his body betrayed him with a jaw-cracking yawn. Sarah smiled, that small, sad smile that was becoming familiar. "Sleep," she repeated. "That's an order." "You can't order an alpha around," Cale muttered. But he was already lying down, his body giving up the fight. "Former alpha," Sarah corrected gently. "And I just did." Cale's last thought before sleep claimed him was that he liked her, this sharp-tongued, broken-hearted she-wolf who'd appeared from nowhere and somehow made the unbearable feel almost manageable. He woke to Sarah's hand on his shoulder and dawn light filtering through the cave entrance. "We have a problem," she said quietly. Cale was on his feet instantly, every sense alert. "Hunters? No. But look." She pointed to the cave entrance, and Cale's blood ran cold. "Tracks. Fresh ones, made sometime in the last few hours while they'd slept. Wolf tracks, large ones. Male by the spacing circling the cave entrance but not entering." "How many?" Cale demanded. "One wolf, I think." But he wasn't alone. Sarah's jaw was tight. "There are boot prints too, human." The wolf was tracking with a human partner. Cale's mind raced. A wolf working with humans wasn't unheard of. Some traders sold out their own kind for territory or protection. But the timing was too convenient. "They're hunting survivors," he said grimly, "making sure no one from Morning Ridge escaped. Then we need to move, now." Sarah was already gathering their meager supplies, her movements quick and efficient. "If they come back with reinforcements, we'll be trapped." Cale looked at Ash, still sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the danger. "Can you travel? With him?" "I don't have a choice. Neither do you." Sarah fashioned a sling from one of the blankets, securing Ash against her chest. "How far to Shadow Peak territory?" 300 miles through mountain wilderness. On foot, traveling carefully with a pup, Cale calculated quickly. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Then we'd better get started. They moved quickly but carefully, covering their tracks as best they could. Cale led them deeper into the mountain range, away from known trails, using every tracking trick his father had taught him to obscure their passage. Behind them, Ash began to fuss. "He's hungry again," Sarah murmured. "We can't stop here, too exposed." Cale scanned the terrain, then pointed. "There's an overhang half a mile ahead. We can shelter there while he feeds." They made it to the overhang with minutes to spare before Ash's fussing turned to full-blown crying. Sarah settled against the rock wall, already loosening her dress, and Cale positioned himself at the entrance, keeping watch. "Talk to me," Sarah said after a moment. "Tell me about Shadow Peak. What should I expect?" Cale kept his eyes on the forest, watching for movement. "Thorn's a good alpha fare. Strategic. Values loyalty above all else. But his beta, Ravenna, she's the real power behind the pack." "How so?" "She's Thorn's mate. Brilliant, ruthless, and protective of Shadow Peak's interests above everything else." Cale's voice was neutral, but there was history there. "She never liked Morning Ridge's alliance with them. Thought we were too soft, too willing to work with humans." Was she wrong? Cale thought about his pack, how they'd maintained trade relationships with the nearby village, how they'd helped human children who got lost in the forest, how they'd believed coexistence was possible. "No," he said quietly. "She wasn't wrong. We were soft, and look where it got us." "Cale, 200 wolves, Sarah, gone because we believed the best of people instead of preparing for the worst." His hands clenched. "Ravenna will remind me of that, probably frequently." Sarah was quiet for a moment, and Cale could hear Ash nursing, the small sounds of contentment that meant he was feeding well. "You can't blame yourself for this," she said finally. "I'm Alpha, was Alpha. It was my job to protect them. You were at the border doing your job. You couldn't have known." "I should have known." The words exploded out of Cale, sharp with rage and grief. There were signs. Increased hunter activity in the region. Strange scents near our territory. My scouts reported it, and I told them we'd investigate. Later, after the full moon run, after one more night of peace, he slammed his fist against the rock wall, welcoming the pain. One more night, he repeated bitterly. That's all it took. One night of letting my guard down, and everyone I loved died screaming. Sierra stood carefully, Ash still nursing, and crossed to Cale. Her free hand found his shoulder, and her touch was warm, grounding. You're allowed to grieve, she said softly. You're allowed to be angry. But Cale, you can't carry this alone. That's how you break. I don't know how to do anything else. Learn. Her voice was fierce now. For Ash, he needs you whole, not shattered. And she paused, vulnerable. I need you too. I can't do this alone either. Cale turned to face her, and in the morning light, he saw the same exhaustion, the same grief, the same desperate determination to survive that he felt. Partnership, he said. Real partnership. We share the burden. Both of us. Both of us. Sarah agreed. Ash chose that moment to finish feeding and let out a satisfied burp that was comically loud for something so small. Despite everything, the danger, the grief, the impossible journey ahead, both Cale and Sarah laughed. Did you hear that? Sarah said, grinning. That's the sound of a healthy, thriving pup. That's the sound of Alara's son being a warrior, Cale corrected. And for the first time since the massacre, he felt something other than despair. He felt purpose. They had 300 miles of dangerous territory ahead of them. They had trackers hunting survivors. They had a pup who needed constant care, but they also had each other. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. Cale? Sarah said suddenly, her body going tense. Do you smell that? Cale inhaled deeply, and his wolf senses caught it immediately. Smoke. Recent. Coming from the direction they'd fled. The cave, he breathed. They found the cave, and when they find it empty, they'll track us. Cale's mind was already racing, calculating distances and odds. How long before Ash needs to feed again? 2 hours, maybe 3 if we're lucky. Then we have 2 hours to put as much distance between us and them as possible. Cale helped Sarah secure Ash in the sling, then grabbed their supplies. Can you run? Sarah's eyes flashed with something fierce. I've been running my whole life, Cale. Try to keep up. They ran. Through dense forest, where branches tore at their clothes, and roots tried to trip them. Along rocky streams that would hide their scent. Up steep inclines that burned their lungs and tested their endurance. Sarah kept pace beside him, one hand always on Ash to keep him secure, her breathing controlled despite the punishing speed. Behind them, Cale's sharp ears caught the sounds of pursuit, the baying of tracking dogs, human shouts, the crash of multiple bodies through underbrush. They were being hunted, and the hunters were gaining ground. There. Sarah pointed ahead to where the forest gave way to a steep ravine. If we can cross that. The bridge is out, Cale said grimly, remembering his last patrol through this area. Storm damage from last month. Then we jump. Cale looked at her like she was insane. It's a 30-foot gap over a 60-foot drop into rapids, with a pup. You have a better idea? The dogs were closer now. Maybe 5 minutes behind them. Maybe less. Cale looked at the ravine, calculated the jump, and made a decision that terrified him. I'll go first. Test the landing. If it's stable, I'll catch you in Ash. And if it's not stable, then you run south until you hit the river, follow it west, and don't look back. Cale. That's an order, Sarah. He met her eyes, letting her see the absolute conviction there. Ash is what matters. If I don't make this jump, you save him. Promise me. Sarah's jaw worked, but finally she nodded. I promise. Now, jump before I change my mind. Cale backed up, giving himself room for a running start. His wolf howled inside him, lending strength to his muscles, sharpening his reflexes. Then he ran. At the edge, he pushed off with everything he had, arms outstretched, body arcing through empty air. His hands caught the opposite edge. Barely. For one heart-stopping second, Cale hung suspended over 60 feet of nothing, his fingers scrabbling for purchase on loose rock. Then he hauled himself up with a roar of effort, rolling to safety. "Your turn," he shouted across the gap. Sarah looked down at Ash, then back at the ravine. Cale could see the fear in her eyes, not for herself, but for the tiny life she carried. Behind her, the dogs burst into view. "Now, Sarah." She ran. And jumped. Chapter 4. The Leap of Faith. Time slowed to a crawl. Cale watched Sarah arc through the air, one arm wrapped protectively around Ash, her body twisted to shield him from any impact. Her eyes locked with his wide, with terror and trust in equal measure. She wasn't going to make it. The realization hit Cale like a physical blow. Her jump was good, but not quite far enough. She'd fall short by inches, maybe a foot. Inches that would send her and Ash plummeting to their deaths. Cale didn't think. He lunged forward, throwing himself toward the edge with his arm outstretched. His hand closed around Sarah's wrist, just as gravity claimed her. The force of catching her nearly yanked Cale over the edge. His shoulder screamed in protest, his body sliding forward on loose gravel. For one terrible moment, they were both going to fall. Then, Cale's other hand found a root, thick and ancient, buried deep in the earth. He held on with everything he had, muscles burning, grip slippery with sweat. "I've got you," he gasped. "Hold on." Below them, Ash began to cry that piercing infant wail that cut through everything else. "He's okay," Sarah called up, her voice strained. "Just scared. Pull us up." Cale pulled. Every muscle in his body screamed in protest, but he pulled. Inch by agonizing inch, he hauled them up until Sarah could get her free hand on the edge, then her knees, then finally roll to safety beside him. They lay there for a moment, gasping for breath, while Ash screamed his displeasure at the world. Across the ravine, the dogs reached the edge. 3 of them, massive hunting hounds bred for tracking wolves. Behind them, 2 humans appeared, both carrying rifles, both scanning the opposite bank. One of them was a wolf in human form. Cale could tell by the way he moved, the way he scented the air. "There!" the wolf trader shouted, pointing directly at them. They made the jump. The human beside him raised his rifle, taking aim. "Move!" Cale roared. They scrambled to their feet and ran, bullets kicking up dirt where they'd been lying seconds before. The shots echoed through the ravine, angry, violent sounds that sent birds scattering from the trees. "They can't cross," Sarah panted as they plunged into the forest. "The bridge is out. We bought ourselves time." "Not enough." Cale's mind was already working through the geography. "There's a crossing point 2 miles south. They'll head there, circle around. We have maybe an hour's head start. Then we use it." They ran for 20 minutes before Ash's crying became too insistent to ignore. Sarah stumbled to a halt in a small clearing, her breathing ragged. "He needs to feed," she said. "And I need a minute." Cale could see the exhaustion pulling at her. She'd been nursing Ash every few hours since yesterday, her body burning through calories it didn't have to spare. Add in the running, the terror, the jump she was running on fumes. 5 minutes, Cale said, standing guard while she settled against a tree. "Then we have to move again." While Sarah nursed Ash, Cale scouted the perimeter. The forest was dense here, good cover, but also good ambush territory. He found a deer trail heading west, away from their current path but toward rougher terrain, where tracking would be harder. When he returned to the clearing, Sarah had Ash settled and was digging through their pack. "We need food," she said. "Real food. I can't keep nursing on dried meat and berries. My body can't sustain it." She was right. Nursing mothers needed substantial nutrition, protein, fats, calories. What they had wouldn't last long. "There's a human settlement about 10 miles northwest," Cale said slowly. "Small farming community. They might have supplies we could trade for." "Trade with what?" "We have nothing." Cale pulled a small pouch from his belt, the one thing he'd grabbed from the ruins of his den before fleeing. Inside were 3 gold coins, stamped with the Morning Ridge Pack seal. "Emergency fund," he explained. "Every alpha carries one, for situations exactly like this." Sarah's eyebrows rose. "That's actually incredibly smart," My father was paranoid. Turns out he was right to be. Cale tucked the pouch away. But we can't both go. Too conspicuous, a male and female wolf with an infant, clearly on the run. The traitor tracking us might have sent word ahead to settlements. So, one of us goes alone. I'll go. I'm faster. And if there's trouble, no. Sarah's voice was firm. You're too distinctive. 7 feet tall, built like a warrior, covered in alpha scars. You'll be remembered. I'm ordinary, just another traveler. She looked down at Ash, her expression torn. But I can't take him with me. If something goes wrong, if I'm recognized or caught, I'll watch him, Cale said immediately. Cale, he'll need to nurse in 2 hours. Then you'll be back in 2 hours. He met her gaze steadily. I trust you, Sarah, and you need to trust me with Ash. The weight of what he was asking hung between them. Sarah had lost her daughter 3 days ago. Now he was asking her to leave another infant in someone else's care and walk into potential danger. Okay, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Okay. But Cale, if something happens to me, if I don't come back, you'll come back. But if I don't... She grabbed his arm, her grip fierce. You get Ash to Shadow Peak. You make sure he grows up safe. You tell him about Alara, about Morning Ridge, about... Her voice cracked. About Luna, about how she would have been his friend, his sister. Cale's throat was tight. I will, I promise. Sarah nodded, then carefully transferred Ash to Cale's arms. The pup stirred but didn't wake, his tiny body warm and trusting. Support his head, Sarah instructed, her hands hovering anxiously. Keep him warm. If he wakes up crying, talk to him like you did last night. Walk with him babies-like movement. And if he drift if it won. Sarah. Cale's voice was gentle. I've got him. Go. Get what we need. Come back. We'll be here. She hesitated one more moment, her hand stroking Ash's head, then turned and vanished into the forest. Cale watched her go, then looked down at the pup in his arms. Just you and me, little warrior, he murmured. Let's not screw this up. The first hour was easy. Ash slept, Cale kept watch, and the forest remained quiet, except for normal wildlife sounds. The second hour was when things got complicated. Ash woke up crying, that building wail that signaled hunger, and no amount of walking or talking would calm him. I know, buddy, Cale said, pacing in circles around the clearing. I know you're hungry. Sarah's coming back soon. Just hold on a little longer. But Ash was 3 weeks old and didn't understand soon. He understood now and hungry. And where is the person who feeds me? Cale tried everything. He hummed the lullaby he'd heard Sarah use. He told stories about the Morning Ridge pack. He even attempted to sing, though his deep rumble was probably more frightening than soothing. Nothing worked. Ash's cries grew more desperate, his tiny body rigid with distress, and beneath Cale's worry for the pup was a growing fear for Sarah. She should have been back by now. Something was wrong. Cale looked down at the screaming infant in his arms, then at the forest where Sarah had disappeared, and faced an impossible choice. Stay and wait, hoping Sarah would return while Ash screamed himself into exhaustion, or go after her, taking a starving pup deeper into danger. Before he could decide, his sharp ears caught a sound that made his blood freeze. Voices. Human voices, coming from the direction of the settlement, and among them, one he recognized. The wolf trader who'd been tracking them definitely came this way. The she-wolf was spotted in town, buying supplies. When I described the male and the pup, the shopkeeper remembered them from last night's attack reports. Cale's mind raced. They'd been identified. The settlement had turned Sarah in. She left heading northwest, another voice said. Can't be far with an infant. Then we search every clearing within a 5-mile radius. They're tired, desperate, and stupid enough to split up. We'll have them by nightfall. Cale looked down at Ash, still crying, and made his decision. They were coming from the northwest between Cale and the settlement, which meant Sarah was either captured or hiding. Either way, Cale couldn't help her if he was caught too. He had to run. Had to get Ash to safety. Had to trust that Sarah could take care of herself. The realization felt like betrayal, leaving her behind. abandoning the wolf who'd saved Ash's life. But Cale's first duty was to the pup in his arms, the last of the Morning Ridge pack. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he whispered to the forest. "I'm so sorry." Then he ran, Ash's cries echoing behind him like an accusation, leading the hunters straight to them. Cale ran for 3 miles before Ash's crying finally faded, not because the pup was calm, but because he'd exhausted himself into a fitful sleep. The momentary quiet let Cale think, and what he thought made his stomach turn. He'd left Sarah behind. Yes. He'd done it to protect Ash. Yes. It was the logical, tactical choice. But logic didn't erase the feeling that he'd failed her, that he'd broken the partnership they'd formed less than 24 hours ago. Partnership meant you didn't leave people behind. Cale found a hollow beneath an ancient oak, sheltered, defensible, and settled Ash carefully into a nest of his own shirt. The pup's face was red from crying, his breathing slightly congested. "Please be okay," Cale murmured, checking Ash over for any signs of illness. "Please just hold on a little longer." But how much longer? Ash needed to nurse. Soon. And without Sarah, a branch snapped behind him. Cale spun, teeth bared, ready to fight to the death to protect the pup. Sarah stumbled into the clearing. She was bleeding from a gash on her temple. Her dress was torn, and she was breathing hard. But she was alive. She was here. "Sarah." Cale crossed to her in 2 strides, steadying her when she swayed. "What happened?" "I thought, ambush, at the settlement." Sarah's words came in gasps. The traitor he'd sent word ahead. "They were waiting. I barely got out." "Are you hurt?" "Besides the head. Bruised, scraped, nothing serious." She pushed past him to where Ash was crying weakly. "Oh baby, I'm here. I'm here now." She settled against the oak and immediately began to nurse, and Ash latched on with desperate hunger. Cale watched relief and pain war across Sarah's face. Relief that Ash was okay, pain that she'd nearly failed him. "I got supplies before the ambush," she said, nodding to a pack she'd dropped. "Not as much as I wanted, but enough. Food, blankets, a water skin." "You're incredible," Cale said, meaning it absolutely. Sarah laughed a broken, exhausted sound. "I'm a disaster. I led them right to us." "No. You got what we needed and escaped an ambush. That's..." Cale paused, realization dawning. "Sarah, how did you escape? If they were waiting, if they knew..." Her eyes dropped to Ash. "I shifted, full wolf form. Fought my way through 3 men and ran. They couldn't keep up with 4 legs. But you were nursing, shifting while nursing." "I know." Her voice was flat. "It's dangerous. It can dry up milk production. But I didn't have a choice." Cale's chest tightened. She'd risked her ability to feed Ash in order to get back to him. She'd chosen survival over safety, and now they might pay the price. Can you still?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "I can feel the milk. He's feeding. But whether my body can keep producing after the shift, we'll find out in a few hours." A few hours. That's all the certainty they had. Cale sank down beside her, suddenly overwhelmed by how precarious everything was. One injury, one mistake, one piece of bad luck, and Ash would die. And there would be nothing either of them could do to stop it. "We're not going to make it to Shadow Peak, are we?" Sarah said quietly. Cale wanted to lie. Wanted to give her false hope and empty promises. But they'd promised partnership. And partnership meant honesty. "I don't know," he said. In the growing darkness, Ash nursed peacefully, oblivious to how fragile his survival really was. Chapter 5. The Bargain. They traveled through the night, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the hunters. Cale navigated by stars and instinct, leading them deeper into the wilderness, where human settlements were scarce, and wolf territories overlapped in complicated, dangerous ways. By dawn, they'd covered 15 miles. By mid-morning, they were both stumbling with exhaustion. "We need to rest," Sarah said, her voice strained. "Really rest. Not just 5-minute breaks." Cale knew she was right. They'd been running on adrenaline and desperation for nearly 48 hours. Eventually, their bodies would simply give out. He found a cave smaller than the last one, but defensible. While Sarah nursed Ash and tried to sleep, Cale set basic traps around the perimeter and gathered firewood. When he returned, Sarah was awake, staring at Ash with an expression Cale couldn't read. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately. "He's not feeding as much." Her voice was hollow. "The shift it affected my milk supply. I can feel it. Each time he nurses, there's less." Cale's stomach dropped. "How long before?" "A day, maybe 2. Sarah's hands trembled as she stroked Ash's head. "After that, I won't be able to feed him enough. He'll start losing weight, getting weak. There has to be another way, another nursing female." "Where, Cale?" Sarah's laugh was bitter. "We're in the middle of nowhere, being hunted by professionals, with no pack and no allies. Where exactly are we going to find a nursing she-wolf who'll take in a strange pup?" Cale wanted to argue, but she was right. They were alone. Completely alone. "Then we get to Shadow Peak faster," he said. "We push harder. 300 miles in 2 weeks, we can do it in 10 days if we—" "Cale." Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "We can't. I can barely walk. You haven't slept in 2 days. And Ash needs constant care. Even if we ran non-stop, even if nothing else went wrong, we wouldn't make it in time." The reality of their situation crashed down on Cale like a physical weight. They were going to watch Ash die. Slowly, painfully. And there was nothing they could do to stop it. Unless, there might be one option. Cale said slowly, "But you're going to hate it. Tell me." "The Blood Moon Pack. Their territory is 30 miles south of here." Cale's jaw was tight. "They're not friendly. Not to outsiders. But they're large, over 100 wolves. Chances are, someone's nursing." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Why do I sense a but coming?" "But they're not Morning Ridge. They don't believe in cooperation or alliances. Their alpha scar rules through strength and fear. If we enter their territory, we're at their mercy." "What kind of mercy are we talking about?" Cale hesitated. "The kind where we might end up dead, or enslaved, or forced to join their pack under terms we'd never accept willingly. But Ash would have a chance. Maybe, if Scar's in a generous mood, if we offer him something valuable enough, if we're lucky." Sarah looked down at Ash, sleeping peacefully in her arms, his tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. 30 miles south, she said. "How long?" 2 days if we push, 1 day if we run. Then we run. Sarah's expression was set, determined. "Because watching him starve isn't an option. I don't care what it costs." Cale understood. He felt the same way, but he also knew what packs like Blood Moon were capable of, and it terrified him. "Sarah, you need to understand what we're walking into. Blood Moon doesn't help out of kindness. Everything has a price, and that price might be—" "Cale." She cut him off, her gray eyes blazing. "I lost my daughter 3 days ago. I held her as she died, felt her last heartbeat, watched the light go out of her eyes. I am not going through that again. I don't care what Scar wants. I don't care what it costs. We're saving Ash." The fierce protectiveness in her voice made something shift in Cale's chest. This wasn't just about keeping a pup alive anymore. This was about Sarah refusing to let grief and loss win again. "Okay," he said quietly. "We go to Blood Moon. We make whatever deal we have to. And we save Ash. Together?" Together. They sealed the promise with a look that held more weight than words, an understanding that they'd crossed a line from allies of necessity to something deeper, something that felt dangerously close to family. The journey to Blood Moon territory was brutal. They ran through the day, rested in brief snatches, and ran through the night. Ash cried from hunger more frequently now, and each time, Sarah's face grew more drawn as she struggled to produce enough milk. By the time they reached the border markers, trees carved with the Blood Moon Pack's symbol, Sarah was swaying on her feet, and Ash's cries had grown weak and pitiful. "How do we announce ourselves?" Sarah asked. Carefully. Cale stepped forward and let out a howl, not a challenge, but a request for parley. The ancient wolf protocol for seeking audience with an alpha. They waited. Within minutes, 6 wolves emerged from the forest. Not in human form and full wolf, fangs bared, hackles raised. They surrounded Cale and Sarah in a loose circle, cutting off all escape routes. The largest wolf, a massive male with a scar running down his muzzle, shifted into human form. He was shorter than Cale but broader, built like a brawler, with cold eyes that assessed them with predatory calculation. "Cale of Morning Ridge," Scar said, his voice like gravel. "Heard you were dead." The rumors were exaggerated, apparently. Scar's gaze moved to Sarah and Ash. "And you bring company. A nursing female with a pup that's not yours. Interesting." "We need help," Cale said, keeping his voice neutral. "The pup needs—" "I know what he needs." Scar circled them slowly, and his packmates kept pace, maintaining the surrounding formation. "Question is, why should I help you?" Morning Ridge looked down on Blood Moon for years, called us savages, refused alliances, and now here you are, desperate and begging. Cale forced down his pride. "You're right. We refused alliances. That was a mistake. One I'm paying for now." "Damn right you are." Scar stopped in front of Sarah, studying her with an intensity that made Cale's wolf growl. "She's not Morning Ridge. Who are you?" "Sarah, formerly of Riverbend Pack." Her voice was steady despite the exhaustion. "No affiliation now." "Riverbend. They were wiped out 5 years ago." Scar's eyes narrowed. "You're a survivor. A lone wolf. And you're nursing a pup that's not yours because I lost my daughter 3 days ago and couldn't let another pup die when I could save him." Sarah's voice cracked slightly. "Because sometimes survival means choosing to care instead of giving up." Something flickered in Scar's expression, not quite sympathy, but perhaps recognition. "And the pup?" he asked. "Last survivor of Morning Ridge," Cale said. "His mother died protecting him. We've been running from hunters for 2 days. Sarah's milk supply is failing because she had to shift during an escape. If we don't find help, he'll die within 48 hours, maybe less." Scar nodded, as if confirming an internal calculation. "I have 3 nursing females in my pack. Any one of them could feed him." Hope surged in Cale's chest. "Then, but I don't do charity." Scar's smile was sharp, dangerous. "Everything has a price, Cale. You want my pack's help? You need to offer something in return. I have gold. I don't need gold. I need loyalty." Scar's eyes locked with Cale's. "Join Blood Moon, both of you. Swear fealty to me. Become part of my pack, under my rules, with no questions and no conditions. Do that, and the pup gets everything he needs." Cale's blood ran cold. Joining a pack meant complete submission to its alpha. It meant giving up autonomy, following orders without question, accepting that Scar's word was law. It meant becoming someone else's subordinate after being alpha himself. "And if we refuse?" Cale asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then you leave my territory, now. And good luck finding help before the pup starves." Scar's voice was emotionless. "Your choice, former alpha. Pride or survival. What's it going to be?" Cale looked at Sarah. She was staring at Ash, tears streaming down her face, her expression a mixture of desperation and defeat. "What about our freedom?" Sarah asked quietly. "If we join, can we ever leave?" "Pack bonds are forever," Scar said. "Once you're Blood Moon for life. Unless you want to be declared rogue, and you know what happens to rogues. Death, swift and brutal. That's what happened to wolves who broke pack bonds." "This is insane," Cale said. "You're asking us to—" "I'm asking nothing." Scar's voice was hard. "I'm offering a deal. Take it or leave it. But decide now, because I'm getting bored. And when I get bored, I get less generous." Cale's mind raced, looking for alternatives, for loopholes, for any way out of this trap. There wasn't one. Ash needed to nurse within the next few hours, or he'd start the final decline toward death, and Blood Moon was their only option. "There has to be another way," Cale said desperately. "Some other price." "There isn't." Scar's smile widened. "And the clock's ticking, Cale. I can hear the pup's heartbeat from here. It's getting weaker. How much longer do you think he has?" Cale looked at Ash, tiny, fragile, dying by inches, and felt his world narrow to a single, terrible choice. Let Ash die free, or save him by surrendering everything. "Cale." Sarah's voice was quiet but steady. "Look at me." He met her eyes, and in them, he saw absolute certainty. We save him, she said. No matter what. That's what we promised. But. No buts. We save him. She turned to Scar, her chin lifting with defiance even as she submitted. I accept your terms. I join Bloodmoon. I swear fealty to you. In exchange, Ash gets the care he needs. Sarah, wait. And Cale accepts too, she continued, her voice ringing with finality. Because he's not stupid enough to let pride kill an innocent pup. Right, Cale? Scar's packmates had gone still, watching the drama unfold. Even Scar looked slightly impressed by Sarah's boldness. She's got fire, Scar observed. I like that. So, Cale, your she-wolf has made her choice. What about you? You going to let her join my pack alone? Or are you going to step up and protect what's yours? The manipulation was obvious, questioning Cale's ability to protect, challenging his masculinity, his fitness as a wolf. And it worked. Because the alternative was watching Sarah and Ash disappear into Bloodmoon, while Cale walked away alone, and that wasn't an option. Not anymore. I accept, Cale said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. I join Bloodmoon. I swear fealty to you, Scar. Both of us do. In exchange, Ash gets everything he needs to survive and thrive. Done. Scar's smile was triumphant. Welcome to Bloodmoon, both of you, your pack now. He gestured, and 2 she-wolves stepped forward, both in human form, both clearly nursing based on the way they moved. Take the pup, Scar ordered. Get him fed. Make sure he's healthy. The wolves moved towards Sarah, hands outstretched for Ash. And Sarah, exhausted, desperate, defeated, handed over the pup she'd been protecting for 2 days. Cale watched Ash disappear into the pack's care, and felt something inside him break. They'd saved the pup, but the cost was everything they had left. Their freedom, their autonomy, their future, all of it, gone in exchange for one tiny life. Follow me, Scar said cheerfully. Let me show you your new home. And Cale, try not to look so devastated. You made the right choice, the only choice. As they followed Scar deeper into Bloodmoon territory, Cale caught Sarah's hand. She squeezed back a silent promise that they'd survive this too. Together, no matter what it took. Chapter 6. The Price of Mercy. The Bloodmoon Pack compound was nothing like Morning Ridge had been, where Cale's pack had built sprawling dens that blended with the forest. Bloodmoon's territory was fortified, tall wooden walls, watchtowers, guards patrolling with military precision. It looked less like a wolf pack's home and more like a prison, or a war camp. Impressive, isn't it? Scar said as they passed through the main gates. We learned long ago that survival means strength, and strength means being ready for anything, including exploiting desperate wolves, Cale muttered. Scar's laugh was sharp. Careful, former alpha. You're pack now, which means I own your loyalty. Backtalk isn't tolerated here. The casual threat sent ice through Cale's veins. He'd been alpha for 5 years, answering to no one, making his own decisions, leading with autonomy. Now he was expected to submit, to obey. The adjustment was going to be hell. They were led to a long building that served as communal housing. Inside, dozens of wolves milled about, some in human form, some shifted, all of them watching the newcomers with varying degrees of curiosity and hostility. You'll stay here until you prove yourselves useful, Scar explained. Meals are communal, duties are assigned at dawn, questions are discouraged, problems are dealt with swiftly. Understand? Where's Ash? Sarah demanded, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. Scar gestured to a smaller building across the compound. Nursery. The pup's being cared for by Elena. She's our best with infants. He's safe, Sarah. That was the deal. I want to see him. Later. First, you both need food, rest, and orientation. Scar's tone brooked no argument. Elena will bring him to you in a few hours. Until then, settle in. He left before either of them could protest further. The moment Scar was gone, the other pack members closed in, not threatening but intensely curious. You're Cale of Morning Ridge, a young male said, his tone awed. The alpha who held 3 mountain ranges. We heard you were dead. I'm hard to kill, Cale replied carefully, unsure how much to reveal. And you? A she-wolf addressed Sarah. You're the one nursing a pup that's not yours? That's unusual. It's necessary, Sarah said flatly. He needed help. I could provide it. An older male stepped forward, his expression less friendly. You both just gave up your freedom for a pup. That's either incredibly noble or incredibly stupid. Maybe both, Cale admitted. The male's lips quirked in what might have been a smile. I'm Finn. Been with Blood Moon for 8 years, joined after my pack was slaughtered by hunters. Word of advice. Scar values strength and usefulness above all else. Show him your assets, not liabilities, and you'll be fine. Cross him, and he drew a finger across his throat. Noted, Cale said grimly. The wolves dispersed, leaving Cale and Sarah alone in a corner of the building. Someone had left them bedrolls and a basket of food bread, dried meat, cheese, simple fare. But more than they'd had in days. Sarah picked at the food without really eating, her eyes constantly drifting toward the nursery building. He's okay, Cale said quietly. Scar needs us cooperative. Hurting Ash would be counterproductive. Logically, I know that. Sarah's voice was strained, but emotionally? I just handed a pup I've been protecting with my life to complete strangers. Every instinct I have is screaming to go get him back. Same. Cale felt the pull too, the need to verify Ash was safe, to stand guard, to ensure no harm came to the last of his pack. But they couldn't. Not yet. Not until they understood the rules of their new prison. How do we survive this? Sarah asked, her exhaustion evident in every line of her body. We adapt, we comply, we make ourselves valuable. Cale's jaw was tight, and we wait for an opportunity. Opportunity for what? To leave, to get Ash and run, to find a better way. He met her eyes. This doesn't have to be forever, Sarah. Pack bonds can be broken if both parties agree. We just need to make ourselves valuable enough that Scar releases us willingly. And if he doesn't? Cale didn't have an answer for that. 2 hours later, a she-wolf appeared carrying Ash. Sarah was on her feet instantly, crossing the room in 3 strides. Is he? He's fine. Fed, clean, sleeping. The she-wolf Elena, presumably, smiled warmly. He's a strong little fighter. Ate well, settled quickly. You did good work keeping him alive on your own. Sarah's hands trembled as she took Ash, cradling him against her chest. The pup stirred but didn't wake, his belly visibly fuller than it had been hours ago. Thank you, Sarah whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for feeding him. Of course, no pup goes hungry in Blood Moon. Elena's expression was kind, but there was steel beneath it. But you should know Scar's expecting you both to earn your keep. Starting tomorrow, you'll have duties. For you, Sarah, that might mean helping in the nursery. For Cale, she studied him. Someone with your combat experience. Probably patrol or perimeter defense. Whatever's needed, Cale said. Elena nodded approvingly. Smart answer. Scar values wolves who don't complain. Just be careful. He's fair, but he's also ruthless. Don't give him reasons to doubt your loyalty. After she left, Sarah settled onto her bedroll with Ash, curling protectively around him. Cale watched them, this makeshift family he'd somehow acquired, and felt the weight of responsibility settle deeper. He'd failed his pack. 200 wolves dead because he hadn't been vigilant enough. He wouldn't fail Sarah and Ash too. Whatever it took to keep them safe, he'd do it. Even if it meant becoming someone he barely recognized. Dawn came too early. A sharp whistle woke the entire building, and wolves scrambled to their feet. Cale and Sarah joined the organized chaos, following the crowd to a central courtyard where Scar stood waiting. Morning assignments, Scar called out. Listen carefully, I don't repeat myself. He rattled off names and duties with military efficiency. When he reached Cale's name, the entire pack went silent. Cale, you'll be joining Border Patrol under Finn's command. You report to him, he reports to me. Your job is to prevent unauthorized entry and hunt down any rogues or threats. Questions? No, Cale said. Good. Sarah, you're assigned to the nursery. Elena will show you the ropes. You'll help care for our young, including Ash when necessary. Relief flooded Sarah's expression. At least she'd be near the pup, The rest of you, you know your assignments. Get to work." The pack dispersed immediately. Finn appeared at Cale's elbow, gesturing for him to follow. "Border Patrol's tough work," Finn said as they headed toward the walls. "We've got a lot of territory to cover, and Scar's paranoid about threats. You'll be running patrols for 8 hours, then you get 4 hours rest, then back on duty. Rotating shifts?" "Exactly. Keeps everyone sharp." Finn paused, lowering his voice. "Look, I know this is an adjustment. You were Alpha, now you're taking orders. But Scar respects competence. Prove you're useful, and you'll get privileges. Respect, maybe even a voice in pack decisions. And if I'm not useful?" Finn's expression was grim. "Then you become expendable. And expendable wolves don't last long in Blood Moon." The threat was clear. Cale had bought Ash's survival with his freedom, but keeping that survival meant proving himself valuable enough to keep alive. They reached the eastern wall, where 3 other wolves waited, all males, all built for combat. "This is Cale," Finn introduced. "Former Alpha of Morning Ridge. He's joining our rotation." The wolves exchanged glances, some curious, some skeptical. "Can he keep up?" One challenged. Finn grinned. "Only one way to find out. Cale, we're covering the eastern perimeter, 15-mile circuit. Standard patrol, check markers, investigate unusual scents, eliminate threats. Think you can handle it?" Cale shifted into wolf form, a massive silver beast with alpha scars visible even through thick fur, and the challenge in his eyes said everything words couldn't. He'd been born for this. Combat, strategy, protection. Being subordinate was new, but being a warrior, that was in his blood. "Lead the way," he growled. And they ran. The patrol was brutal. Blood Moon's territory was massive, stretching across dense forest, rocky terrain, and treacherous ravines. The patrol route was designed to test endurance and awareness, pushing wolves to their limits. Cale kept pace easily, his alpha training kicking in despite the changed circumstances. He tracked scents Finn missed, spotted trail markers the others overlooked, and maintained perfect formation. By hour 3, even the skeptical wolves were impressed. "You're good," one admitted as they paused at a natural spring. "Better than most wolves, Scar recruits." "I had good teachers," Cale replied, thinking of his father, his pack's warriors, all the wolves who'd trained him and were now Ash. Morning Ridge's reputation wasn't exaggerated then, Finn observed. "Scar will be pleased. He values skill." They resumed patrol, and Cale let his mind wander to Sarah and Ash. Were they safe? Was Ash feeding well? Was Sarah managing the adjustment to pack life? His distraction nearly cost him. A scent hit his nose wrong, foreign, dangerous, and Cale's hackles rose instinctively. "Finn," he growled. "We've got company." The patrol went on immediate alert, forming a defensive line. From the underbrush emerged 5 wolves, rogues, by their wild appearance and hostile stance. "Blood Moon territory," Finn announced. "Leave now or face consequences." The lead rogue laughed, a harsh mocking sound. "Blood Moon's gone soft, letting in charity cases and refugees. Scar's losing his edge." "Last warning," Finn said. The rogues attacked. Cale moved on pure instinct, dodging the first lunge, countering with teeth that found throat, using his superior size to pin an opponent. Around him, Finn's team engaged with practiced efficiency. The fight was over in minutes. 3 rogues dead, 2 fleeing into the forest. "Let them run," Finn ordered. "They'll spread word that Blood Moon doesn't tolerate trespassers." Cale shifted back to human form, breathing hard, blood on his hands. The violence felt familiar, a return to something he understood. "Nice work," Finn said, clapping Cale's shoulder. "You've still got it, Alpha." "Former Alpha," Cale corrected quietly. "Maybe, but you fight like someone who was born to lead." Finn's expression was thoughtful. "Scar's going to want you for more than just patrol. Skills like yours, they're valuable." Something in Finn's tone made Cale wary. "What do you mean?" "Just be careful. Scar rewards strength, but he also fears it." Finn lowered his voice. "And wolves who remind him too much of what he could lose. They don't last long in positions of power." The warning was clear. Prove yourself too capable, and Scar would see you as a threat. Prove yourself too weak, and you'd be expendable. Cale was walking a razor's edge, between value and danger. And one wrong step could cost him and Sarah and Ash everything. When Cale returned to the compound that evening, exhausted and filthy, he found Sarah waiting outside the communal building. She looked better than she had that morning cleaner, more rested, less haunted. And in her arms, wrapped in a soft blanket, was Ash. "He's thriving," Sarah said, her voice full of wonder and relief. "Elena says he's gained weight already. He's nursing well, sleeping better. He's going to make it, Cale." The relief that flooded Cale was so intense it nearly buckled his knees. They'd done it. They'd saved him. "Can I?" Cale gestured to the pup. Sarah carefully transferred Ash to his arms, and Cale cradled the tiny life with infinite gentleness. Up close, he could see what Sarah meant. Ash did look healthier, his fur cleaner, his body less fragile. "Hey, little warrior," Cale murmured. "Look at you, growing strong already." Ash yawned, his tiny mouth opening wide, and Cale felt something in his chest crack open, something that had been frozen since the massacre. "Hope. We did it," he said to Sarah. "We actually did it. We did." Sarah's smile was tired but genuine. "Now we just have to figure out how to survive this place long enough to figure out our next move. One day at a time," Cale said. "One day at a time," Sarah agreed. As the sun set over Blood Moon territory, casting everything in shades of orange and gold, Cale held Ash and stood beside Sarah, and felt something he hadn't felt in days. Not happiness, they weren't there yet, but possibility. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Chapter 7. The Hunter's Shadow. 3 weeks passed in Blood Moon territory, and Cale learned the rhythms of submission. Wake at dawn, report for patrol, run 15 miles checking borders, return exhausted, eat whatever was provided, sleep in communal housing, repeat. It was nothing like being Alpha, where his word was law, where he made decisions that shaped hundreds of lives, where respect came automatically. Here, he was just another soldier. Valuable. Yes. Respected for his skill. Certainly. But never allowed to forget that Scar's word was final. The adjustment burned like acid in Cale's throat. But Ash was thriving, and that made everything bearable. The pup had doubled in weight. His eyes had opened, revealing striking amber irises that marked him as pure Morning Ridge bloodline, and he was beginning to show personality. He cried when hungry but settled quickly when fed. He tracked movement with curious eyes. He even attempted tiny play growls that were more adorable than threatening. Sarah spent her days in the nursery, caring for Ash and 3 other pups born to Blood Moon mothers. Elena had become a friend, one of the few wolves in the pack who treated them as equals rather than charity cases. "You're good with him," Elena observed one afternoon, watching Sarah coax Ash through tummy time. "Natural mother." Sarah's expression flickered with pain. "I had practice, before." Elena's eyes were sympathetic. "Luna, right? You mentioned her once, when you were half asleep. My daughter. She'd be almost 2 months old now." Sarah's voice was steady, but Cale, who'd stopped by the nursery between patrols, could hear the grief beneath. "Sometimes I forget she's gone. I'll turn to tell her something, and then I remember." "I'm sorry," Elena said softly. "Me too." Sarah stroked Ash's head, her touch gentle. "But caring for him helps. It doesn't replace her. Nothing could. But it gives me purpose. Gives me a reason to keep going." Cale cleared his throat from the doorway, announcing his presence. Both women looked up. "Patrol's done early," he explained. "Thought I'd check in." "Perfect timing." Elena stood, stretching. "I need to check on the other pups. You two have some time before dinner." She left them alone, a small gift of privacy that was rare in Blood Moon's communal lifestyle. Cale knelt beside Sarah, watching Ash attempt to lift his head. The pup's determination was evident in every wobbling effort. "He's strong," Cale said, "like his mother." "Alara would be proud," Sarah agreed. Then, quieter. "How are you holding up?" Cale knew what she was really asking. How was he managing the loss of status? The submission? The constant reminder that he'd failed as Alpha? "I'm managing," he said, which was both truth and lie. "Cale." Sarah's hand found his. "Talk to me. Real talk, not brave face." He was silent for a long moment. Then, I hate it. Every minute of taking orders, of biting my tongue, of pretending I'm content being subordinate. I wake up every morning and have to remind myself why I'm here, why it's worth it. And is it worth it? Cale looked at Ash, healthy, safe, alive, and felt the answer settle in his bones. Yes, 1,000 times yes. His voice was fierce. I'd do it again. I'd do worse. Because he's worth it. You're both worth it. Sarah's eyes glistened. We're going to find a way out of this. Someday, we'll be free again. I know. Cale squeezed her hand. We just have to be patient. But patience, Cale was learning, was the hardest virtue to maintain. The explosion of trouble came, as it always does, when least expected. Cale was on evening patrol with Finn when they caught the scent human, recent, accompanied by something chemical that made his wolf recoil. Silver, Finn growled. And gunpowder. Hunters. Inside Blood Moon territory, they followed the trail to a clearing, where 3 men were setting up equipment cameras, motion sensors, and what looked like silver-tipped traps. Professional operation, Cale whispered. They're planning something big. We need to report to Scar immediately. One of the hunters turned, somehow sensing their presence despite the downwind position. His eyes widened, and he reached for a rifle. Go! Finn roared. They ran, bullets tearing through the trees behind them. Cale's mind raced as fast as his legs. This wasn't random hunters. This was reconnaissance. Planning. The same kind of operation that had destroyed Morning Ridge. They burst through the compound gates, shouting for Scar. Within minutes, the Alpha appeared, flanked by his senior wolves. Hunters! Finn gasped. Eastern Territory. Professional setup. They're planning an attack. Scar's expression went cold and lethal. How many? 3 that we saw. But the equipment suggests more. Cale stepped forward. This isn't a hunting party. It's surveillance for a larger operation. I've seen this before, right before Morning Ridge fell. Every wolf in the compound went still. The destruction of Morning Ridge was legend now, a cautionary tale of what happened when packs weren't vigilant. You think they're planning the same thing here? Scar demanded. I think whoever ordered Morning Ridge's destruction isn't satisfied, Cale said grimly. We had territory they wanted. Resources, strategic position. Blood Moon has all the same things. So they're coming for us next. Scar's voice was flat, deadly. How long do we have? Based on Morning Ridge's timeline? Maybe a week. Maybe less. Cale's jaw was tight. They'll scout thoroughly, identify weaknesses, then hit fast and brutal. Probably at dawn when the pack's drowsy. Scar was silent for a long moment. Then, Cale, you're the only wolf here who's survived this kind of attack. I'm putting you in charge of defense planning. The compound erupted in protest. Other wolves, senior pack members who'd been with Blood Moon for years, shouted objections about authority, hierarchy, earned status. Scar silenced them with a snarl. Cale knows what we're facing. He's seen the tactics. He's survived them. That makes him our best chance. His eyes locked on Cale. Can you do this? Can you prepare us to survive what Morning Ridge couldn't? It was a test, a challenge, and an opportunity. Cale could refuse, stay subordinate, stay safe, let someone else handle the impossible task of preventing a massacre. Or he could step up, take responsibility, risk everything to save a pack that wasn't even his. I can do it, Cale said. But I need full authority over defense. My word on fortifications, patrol routes, and combat strategy is final. No arguments, no undermining, no second-guessing. Done, Scar said immediately. You have 48 hours to prepare us. After that, we're in your hands. The weight of 200 lives settled on Cale's shoulders, familiar and terrifying in equal measure. He'd failed his pack once. He couldn't fail again. Cale worked through the night. He mapped Blood Moon's territory with Finn's help, identifying every weakness, every potential entry point, every place where hunters could establish a kill zone. He reorganized patrol routes to maximize coverage. He had wolves dig trenches and build barriers in strategic locations. And he trained. Every able-bodied wolf in Blood Moon learned hand-to-hand combat against armed humans. They practiced quick shifts between forms, They drilled emergency evacuation procedures for the nursery and elder dens. Sarah found him past midnight, still poring over maps by firelight. "You need to sleep," she said gently. "Can't. Too much to do." Cale's eyes were bloodshot, his hands shaking from exhaustion. "If I miss something, if I don't prepare them perfectly, then we'll adapt, we'll survive, together." Sarah knelt beside him, taking his face in her hands. "Cale, you can't prevent every death. You couldn't save Morning Ridge, and you can't guarantee saving every wolf here. But you can give us the best chance possible, and you've done that. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. That's what makes you a good alpha." She smiled sadly. "Because you care more about their lives than your own. I'm not alpha anymore. You'll always be alpha, Cale. It's not about the title. It's about who you are at your core." She pressed her forehead to his. "Now sleep. 2 hours. I'll wake you if anything happens." Cale wanted to argue, but his body betrayed him with a wave of exhaustion so profound he could barely keep his eyes open. 2 hours, he agreed. Sarah guided him to a bedroll, covered him with a blanket, and stood guard while he fell into restless sleep. He dreamed of fire and screaming, of Morning Ridge burning while he ran too slow to save anyone, of Ash crying in the flames while Cale's hands found nothing but ash. He woke with a gasp to find Sarah shaking him, her expression urgent. "They're here," she whispered. "The hunters. They're attacking now." Cale was on his feet instantly, adrenaline burning away. Exhaustion. Outside, he could hear shouts, gunfire, wolves howling in pain and rage. The nightmare had begun, and this time, Cale would be ready. The compound was chaos. Hunters had breached the eastern wall exactly where Cale had predicted, and were pushing in with military precision. Silver bullets tore through wolves who weren't fast enough to dodge. Fire arrows set buildings ablaze, but Blood Moon was ready. Cale's defensive preparations meant every wolf knew their position. The nursery had been evacuated within minutes. Elders were sheltered in the underground den system. Cale had insisted they expand. Warriors held formation, fighting smart instead of wild. "Northgate," Finn shouted. "They're trying to flank." Cale shifted mid-run, his massive wolf form tearing across the compound. He reached the north gate just as hunters were planting explosives. He didn't give them time to light the fuse. His jaws closed on the first hunter's arm, breaking bone. He used the man's body as a battering ram against the second, sending them both tumbling. The third raised a rifle, and Sarah was there, in wolf form, her smaller size meaning faster speed. She hit the hunter low, knocking his aim wide, and Cale finished him with a strike to the throat. More hunters poured through the breach, and Cale's training kicked in. He fought with the tactical precision of an alpha targeting leaders, disrupting formation, using terrain to his advantage. Around him, Blood Moon wolves fought with newfound coordination. The drills were paying off, they were surviving. But the hunters kept coming. "There's too many," a young wolf shouted, panic in his voice. Cale shifted to human form, his voice ringing with alpha authority. "Hold the line. They can't sustain this assault, we just have to outlast them." "Cale," Scar appeared, bleeding from a dozen wounds but still fighting. "The western wall, they've got something big, some kind of weapon." An explosion rocked the compound, sending wolves flying. Through the smoke, Cale saw it a mounted machine gun, the kind military used for mass casualties. They'd brought it specifically for wiping out wolf packs, just like they'd used at Morning Ridge. "Everyone down," Cale roared. The machine gun opened fire, bullets tearing through everything in their path. Wolves who weren't fast enough dropped, their bodies torn apart by the sustained fire. And Cale, watching wolves die because he hadn't prepared for this weapon, felt Morning Ridge's massacre happening all over again. "No," he breathed. "Not again. Not again." He charged the machine gun position, suicidal, stupid, driven by rage and grief, and the desperate need to save someone, anyone, this time. Bullets tore past him. One grazed his shoulder, another his leg. But Cale kept running, kept moving, kept closing the distance. He reached the gun position and shifted mid-leap, his wolf form crashing into the operators with bone-crushing force. He tore through them with savage efficiency. then grabbed the machine gun in his jaws and threw it over the wall. Silence fell like a blanket. The hunters, what remained of them, were retreating, their assault broken by Blood Moon's resistance. Cale shifted back to human form and collapsed, his body finally registering the pain from multiple bullet wounds. "Cale!" Sarah was there, her hands checking his injuries. "You're hit." "I'm fine." "The pups, check the pups. They're safe." Elena got them all out before the attack reached the nursery. Sarah's voice was choked with tears. "You did it, Cale. You saved us." But as Cale looked around the compound at the bodies, the blood, the destruction, he didn't feel like a savior. He felt like someone who'd barely delayed the inevitable, because the hunters would come back. They always did. Chapter 8. The Truth Unveiled. The aftermath of the attack was brutal in ways beyond just casualties. Blood Moon had lost 17 wolves, a devastating number, but nowhere near the total annihilation that had claimed Morning Ridge. Cale's preparations had saved lives. His tactical decisions had meant the difference between survival and extinction, but 17 wolves were still 17 funerals. 17 families destroyed. 17 failures that Cale would carry forever. He stood in the compound's central gathering space 3 days after the attack, his body wrapped in bandages, watching as Scar addressed the pack. "We survived," Scar said, his voice carrying across the assembled wolves. "Because of preparation, because of strategy, because one wolf, a wolf we took in as a refugee, gave us the knowledge to fight back." All eyes turned to Cale. "Kyle of Morning Ridge saved this pack," Scar continued. "He saw what was coming. He trained us. He led the defense that broke the hunters' assault. Without him, we'd all be ash." The pack erupted in howls of gratitude and respect, a sound that should have felt like vindication but instead felt like accusation. Because Cale hadn't saved Morning Ridge, he'd failed them completely. After the ceremony, Cale retreated to the quietest corner of the compound he could find. He needed to think, needed to understand the pattern he was seeing. 2 attacks, 2 packs targeted, both with professional hunters, both with identical tactics. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. Someone was systematically eliminating wolf packs. But why? "You look like you're trying to solve the mysteries of the universe." Cale looked up to find Finn settling beside him, carrying 2 cups of something that smelled like medicinal tea. "Elena's orders," Finn explained, handing 1 cup to Cale. "Says you need to stay hydrated while you heal." Cale accepted the tea, grimacing at the bitter taste. "Thanks." They sat in companionable silence for a moment. Then Finn said quietly, "You're thinking about who's behind this. The attacks. How'd you know?" "Because I'd be thinking the same thing." Finn's expression was grim. 2 major packs hit in less than a month, both with identical tactics. Someone's coordinating this. The question is who and why, and how they knew where to strike, Cale added. Morning Ridge's security was tight. We didn't advertise our routines or vulnerabilities, yet the hunters knew exactly when and where to hit us. Same with Blood Moon. They knew about the eastern wall weakness, the one spot where our defenses were thinnest. Finn's eyes narrowed. "That's not intel you get from observation. That's insider knowledge." The implication hit Cale like a physical blow. "You think there's a traitor? Inside the packs?" "I think it's the only explanation that makes sense." Finn lowered his voice. "And I think we need to find them before they give away our next weakness." Before Cale could respond, Sarah appeared, moving quickly, her expression urgent. "Cale, you need to see this. Now." Sarah led them to a small storage building on the compound's edge. Inside, 2 wolves stood guard over a third bound, gagged, and looking terrified. "We caught him trying to leave the compound during the attack," Sarah explained. "With this." She held up a small radio transmitter, military grade. "He was sending coordinates," one of the guards added. "Real-time updates on our defensive positions." Cale's blood turned to ice. He approached the bound wolf slowly, studying him. Young, maybe 20. Familiar, though Cale couldn't place from where. "Remove the gag," Cale ordered. The guard complied, and the young wolf immediately started babbling. "I didn't have a choice. They threatened my family. They said if I didn't help, they'd kill my sister." "Who?" Cale demanded. "Who threatened you?" I don't know. They never gave names. Just contacted me a year ago. Said they were building something big. Wanted information about pack structures, defenses, alpha schedules. The wolf's voice cracked with panic. I thought they were just planning robberies or something. I didn't know about the massacres. But you kept feeding them information, Finn said coldly, even after Morning Ridge fell. They have my sister, the wolf cried. What was I supposed to do? Cale felt a wave of disgust and pity. This wolf, this traitor, was both victim and perpetrator. Manipulated into betrayal, but betrayal nonetheless. What pack was your sister in? Cale asked. Riverbend, 5 years ago. The wolf's eyes were desperate. They took her during the massacre. Said they'd keep her alive as long as I cooperated. I've been trying to find her, but… Sarah made a strangled sound. Riverbend. That was my pack. Everyone turned to stare at her. They were wiped out 5 years ago, Sarah continued, her voice shaking. I thought everyone died, but if they were taking prisoners, then the massacres aren't just about territory or resources. Cale said slowly, pieces clicking into place. They're about something else. Something that requires live wolves. What could they possibly need wolves for? Finn asked. Cale's mind raced through possibilities, each more horrifying than the last. Medical experiments, breeding programs, some kind of supernatural weapon development. Whatever it is, it's big, he said. Big enough to justify years of planning, infiltrating multiple packs, coordinating complex military operations. So what do we do? Sarah's hands were clenched into fists. My daughter might still be if they're keeping prisoners. Luna's dead, Sarah, Cale said gently. You saw the blood. You know what happened. But other wolves might be alive. Prisoners from Morning Ridge, from Riverbend, from who knows how many other packs. Sarah's eyes blazed with fierce determination. We have to find them. We have to stop this. Agreed, Scar said from the doorway, making everyone jump. How long had he been listening? The alpha moved into the room, his expression harder than Cale had ever seen it. This threat is bigger than any single pack, Scar said. If someone's systematically targeting wolves, building an army of prisoners, developing some kind of weapon, we need to stop them before they come for the rest of us. You're talking about going on the offensive, Finn said, hunting the hunters. I'm talking about survival. Scar turned to Cale. You've proven yourself. Your tactical mind saved us. Now I'm asking you to use it again. Find these bastards. Figure out what they're planning. And stop them. That's not a mission, Cale said. That's a suicide run. We don't know where they're based, how many there are, what resources they have. So gather intelligence. Scar gestured to the bound traitor. Start with him. Find out everything he knows. Then follow the trail wherever it leads. And Blood Moon? We'll be here when you return. If you return. Scar's expression was pragmatic. But Cale, if you do this, if you take on this mission, you're released from your pack bond. You'll be free. No obligations, no servitude. You'll have earned your autonomy back. Freedom. The word hung in the air like a promise and a curse. What about Sarah and Ash? Cale asked. They stay here, safe, protected. Scar's eyes were steady. Unless Sarah chooses to go with you. All eyes turned to Sarah. She looked at Cale, then down at her hands, clearly warring with herself. If I go, she said slowly. What happens to Ash? Elena will care for him, Scar said. She's already bonded with him. He'll be safe here. But I won't be with him. I'll be risking my life on a mission that might not even succeed. Sarah's voice cracked. I've already lost one child, Cale. I can't. Then stay, Cale said immediately. Stay with Ash. Keep him safe. That's what matters most. But you? I'll be fine. I'm a survivor, remember? Cale managed a smile he didn't feel. And someone needs to stop these bastards before they hurt anyone else. Sarah stared at him for a long moment, then crossed the room and grabbed his face between her hands. You come back, she said fiercely. You hear me, Cale? You find out what's happening, you stop it, and you come back, because Ash needs you. And I? Her voice broke. I need you too. The admission hung between them more than partnership, more than alliance. something that felt dangerously like love. "I'll come back," Cale promised. "I swear it." If Cale's journey from loss to purpose reminds you that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is keep fighting when everything's been taken from us, subscribe to join others who believe that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means finding new reasons to survive. They spent the next 3 days extracting every piece of information from the traitor. His name was Reed. He'd been feeding intelligence to the hunters for 13 months. He knew they operated from a facility somewhere in the northern mountains, a place called the Sanctuary that Reed had never seen but heard mentioned repeatedly. "They're building something," Reed insisted during one interrogation. "I don't know what, but they need wolves, lots of them. They kept saying they were getting close to a breakthrough." "A breakthrough in what?" Cale demanded. "I don't know. They never explained. Just said that soon, wolves wouldn't be a threat anymore, that they'd have the power to control us, to neutralize us. A weapon. They were developing an anti-wolf weapon. The implications were staggering. If someone had figured out how to neutralize wolves, their strength, their speed, their healing, they could wipe out every pack in existence. "How do we find the sanctuary?" Cale asked. "I was supposed to report to a contact point 50 miles north," Reed said. "Every month, I'd leave information dead drop style. They'd leave payment and new instructions. When's your next drop?" 3 days from now." Cale looked at Finn, who'd been sitting in on the interrogations. "That's our entry point. We intercept the pickup, follow whoever retrieves it back to their base." "Risky," Finn observed. "If they spot us, then we improvise." Cale's expression was grim. "But we don't have better options." Finn was quiet for a moment, then, "I'm coming with you." "What?" "You can't do this alone. You need backup, someone who knows the territory, someone you can trust." Finn's jaw was set. "Scar's already approved it. I'm assigned to your mission." Cale wanted to argue, didn't want to risk anyone else's life on what might be a suicide mission, but Finn was right. He needed help. "Okay," Cale agreed. "We leave tomorrow at dawn." Saying goodbye to Sarah and Ash was harder than any battle Cale had ever fought. He found them in the nursery, Sarah humming while Ash dozed against her shoulder. The pup had grown so much in the past month. His limbs were sturdier, his movements more coordinated, his personality emerging in little bursts of curiosity and stubborn determination. "He's going to be a handful when he's older," Cale said softly from the doorway. Sarah looked up, her smile fading when she saw his expression. "You're leaving now. Dawn tomorrow." "But I needed to see him. Both of you." Sarah carefully transferred Ash to a soft nest of blankets, then crossed to Cale. For a long moment, they just stood there, drinking in the sight of each other. "I meant what I said," Sarah finally whispered. "You come back. Don't you dare die out there and make me raise Ash alone." "I won't. I promise." Cale pulled her close, breathing in her scent wild forests and hope and home. "You keep him safe. Tell him stories about Morning Ridge. About Alara. Make sure he knows where he comes from." "And what do I tell him about you?" "Tell him," Cale's voice caught. "Tell him I fought to give him a world where packs could live without fear, where pups could grow up without watching their families burn." Sarah pulled back, tears streaming down her face. "That sounds like a goodbye." "It's a promise," Cale corrected. "I'm coming back, Sarah, to you, to Ash, to the family we've built." She kissed him, then fierce and desperate and full of everything they hadn't said, all the feelings that had grown between them over weeks of shared survival. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Come back to me," Sarah whispered. "Always," Cale promised. He knelt beside Ash one last time, pressing a gentle kiss to the pup's forehead. "Be good for Sarah, little warrior. And when I get back, I'll teach you everything I know about being strong." Ash stirred in his sleep, one tiny paw reaching out as if grasping for something. Cale let the pup's fingers close around his thumb, holding on for just a moment longer. Then he stood, nodded once to Sarah, and walked away before his resolve could break. He had hunters to find, a conspiracy to unravel, and a family worth fighting for. Chapter 9. The Sanctuary. The northern mountains were brutal terrain, all jagged rocks and treacherous ice fields that tested even Kyle's endurance. He and Finn traveled in wolf form for speed, carrying minimal supplies, moving fast and silent through territory that belonged to no pack. It took them 2 days to reach the dead drop location. Reed had described a hollowed tree trunk marked with 3 parallel scratches. Inside, they found Reed's latest intelligence packet, carefully sealed in waterproof casing. "Now we wait," Finn whispered. Both of them hidden in the underbrush 50 yards away. They waited for 6 hours. Just as Cale was starting to think no one would come, he caught movement, a human, male, dressed in tactical gear, approaching the tree with practiced caution. The man retrieved the packet, glanced around once, then headed northeast. Cale and Finn followed at a distance, staying downwind, using every tracking skill they possessed to remain undetected. The man led them through increasingly rough terrain, up a mountainside that seemed designed to discourage visitors. After 3 miles, they saw it, the sanctuary. From the outside, it looked like an abandoned mining facility, old buildings, rusted equipment, the kind of place that would attract zero attention. But Cale's sharp eyes caught the details that betrayed the deception. New reinforced doors on old structures, security cameras disguised as broken equipment, the faint hum of generators buried underground. "That's not abandoned," Finn breathed. "That's fortified. And huge," Cale added, studying the layout. The visible buildings were just the surface. There had to be extensive underground facilities. The mountains here were honeycombed with old mining tunnels. "How do we get inside?" Cale thought quickly. "We need to see what they're doing before we act. Reconnaissance first, then planning." They spent the next 2 days observing from hiding, documenting patterns. Guards rotated every 6 hours. Supply trucks arrived twice daily, and most tellingly, wolves were brought in, always unconscious, always in specially designed transport cages. Prisoners. On the 3rd day, Cale saw something that made his blood freeze. A transport truck arrived carrying 3 wolves, and one of them, even from a distance, was recognizable by the distinctive white-tipped tail that marked the Morning Ridge bloodline. Someone from his pack had survived. Was being held prisoner here. "We have to get inside," Cale said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "Tonight. Cale, we don't know what we're walking into. My pack is in there, Finn. Wolves from Morning Ridge, who I thought were dead. I'm not leaving them." Cale's eyes blazed gold, his wolf rising to the surface. "You can wait here, or come with me." "Your choice." Finn was quiet for a moment, then sighed. "You're going to get us killed." "Probably." "Fine. Let's go die heroically then." Finn managed a grim smile. "But we do this smart. We need a way in that doesn't trigger every alarm they have." They watched and planned until sunset, then made their move. The ventilation system was their entry point, old mining shafts that had been repurposed for air circulation. Narrow, claustrophobic, but unguarded, because who would be crazy enough to crawl through hundreds of yards of pitch-black tunnels? Apparently, Cale and Finn. They shifted to human form. Wolf bodies were too large for the tight spaces and crawled for what felt like hours, following the flow of air and the distant sounds of machinery. Finally, they emerged into a maintenance corridor. Clean, modern, completely at odds with the abandoned exterior. "Which way?" Finn whispered. Cale inhaled deeply, sorting through the scents, cleaning chemicals, humans, fear sweat, and underneath it all wolves, dozens of them. "Down," Cale said, following the scent. "Whatever they're doing, it's underground." They moved like ghosts through corridors that grew increasingly high-tech. Steel walls, biometric locks, security cameras that Finn disabled with practiced ease apparently. He'd had experience with human technology before joining Blood Moon. The sounds grew louder, machinery humming, voices echoing, and beneath it all, the unmistakable sound of wolves whimpering in pain. Cale's hands clenched into fists. Whatever was happening here, it was bad. They reached a door marked containment, authorized personnel only, and peered through the small window. What Cale saw made his stomach turn. A massive underground facility, easily the size of 3 football fields, rows upon rows of steel cages, each containing a wolf. Some were conscious, pressing against the bars with desperate eyes. Others lay unconscious, attached to medical equipment. And in the center of it all, a laboratory where humans in white coats worked on sedated wolves, injecting them with something that glowed with an unnatural blue light. What the hell are they doing? Finn breathed. Cale didn't answer. He was scanning the cages, looking for familiar faces. And there, 3rd row, 5th cage, a female wolf with morning ridge markings, thin and scarred but unmistakably alive. Mira, one of his sisters. Cale had watched her die, had seen her body in the ruins of the den, burned beyond recognition, except it hadn't been her. Somehow, impossibly, she'd survived. Been taken. Cale. Finn grabbed his arm, holding him back. We can't just rush in. Look at the security, the guards. We need a plan. The plan is we get them out, Cale growled. All of them. There have to be 50 wolves in there. We can't. Then we create a distraction. We overload their systems. We make them choose between containing the prisoners and defending their facility. Cale's mind was racing, tactical training kicking in. The generators, if we sabotage them, it'll kill the power to the electronic locks. The cages will open automatically as a safety measure. You hope. You have a better idea? Finn grimaced. Not really. Okay. Generators are probably in a separate room, standard safety protocol for facilities like this. We split up. You find the generators and sabotage them. I'll locate an exit route for the prisoners. And when the alarms go off, we improvise, like you said. Finn managed a tight smile. See you on the other side, Alpha. They split up. Cale found the generator room, exactly where Finn predicted, a separate chamber with massive electrical systems humming with power. He didn't understand most of the technology, but he understood enough. Destroy the fuel lines. Overload the circuits. Create cascading failures. He shifted to wolf form for the strength, then systematically tore through every system he could reach. Alarms began shrieking, lights flickered, and somewhere in the distance, he heard the distinctive click of electronic locks disengaging. Success. Cale shifted back to human form and ran toward the containment area. Behind him, he could hear shouts, guards mobilizing, the facility erupting into chaos. He burst through the door to find pandemonium. The cages had opened. Wolves were pouring out, weak, disoriented, but free. Guards were trying to contain them with nets and tranquilizer guns. But there were too many prisoners, too much chaos. Cale dove into the fray, fighting his way toward where he'd seen Mira. Humans tried to stop him, but Cale was rage incarnate, a former alpha with nothing left to lose and everything to save. He reached Mira's cage. She was conscious now, staring at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. Cale? Her voice was hoarse, broken. You're alive? So are you. Cale tore open the cage door, helping her stumble out. Can you walk? I can run if it means getting out of here. Despite her condition, Mira's eyes blazed with the same fire. Cale remembered. But there are others, Morning Ridge wolves, other packs. We're getting everyone out. Cale scanned the chaos, looking for Finn, spotted him near the far exit, herding confused wolves toward freedom. Can you help them? Get them moving toward the exits? Mira nodded, then shifted into wolf form despite her obvious weakness. She began moving through the crowd, barking orders, organizing the chaos into something resembling an evacuation. Cale fought his way through the facility, breaking open any cage that was still locked, taking down guards who tried to stop the exodus. Around him, wolves were discovering their strength, their rage, turning from victims to fighters. The hunters had made a critical mistake. They'd kept their prisoners close together, thinking numbers would make them easier to control. Instead, it meant that when the wolves broke free, they had an instant army. Cale was helping an elderly wolf toward the exit when he heard a voice that stopped him cold. Kyle of Morning Ridge, I've been waiting to meet you. He turned to find a woman in a pristine white lab coat, her expression calm despite the chaos around them. She was flanked by guards, carrying weapons that looked nothing like standard rifles, something more advanced, more deadly. Who are you? Cale demanded. Dr. Sarah Chen, director of the Genesis Project. She smiled, and it was the smile of someone who believed herself untouchable. And you've just ruined 5 years of research by releasing my subjects. Your subjects are wolves, living beings, not experiments. They're both, actually. Dr. Chen gestured to the lab equipment. Do you know what we've been working on here, Cale? A way to neutralize the wolf gene, to remove your kind's advantages, strength, speed, healing, and reduce you to ordinary humans. Controllable humans. Horror crawled up Cale's spine. Why? Because wolves are dangerous. Unpredictable. You can't be tamed. Can't be integrated into civilized society. You're a threat that needs to be eliminated. Her voice was matter-of-fact, clinical. The Genesis serum will do just that. One injection, and a wolf becomes human, permanently. No more shifting, no more packs, no more threat. You're insane, Cale breathed. I'm pragmatic, and we're almost ready for mass production. Dr. Chen's smile widened. These prisoners? They're the final test subjects. Once we perfect the dosage, we'll deploy it worldwide. Every pack, every wolf, neutralized within a generation, over my dead body, if necessary. Dr. Chen nodded to her guards. Subdue him, and recover as many subjects as possible. The project continues. The guards raised their weapons, those strange rifles that hummed with power, and fired. The projectiles weren't bullets. They were darts, dozens of them, spreading in a wide pattern that was impossible to dodge completely. Cale felt 3 hit his shoulder, his leg, his side, and immediately, his body went wrong. His wolf, the presence that had been with him since birth, the power that made him what he was, began to retreat. He reached for the shift, and found nothing. His enhanced strength faltered, his healing slowed to human speeds. What? Cale gasped, dropping to his knees. What did you do? Genesis serum, preliminary version. Not permanent yet, but effective for about an hour. Doctor, Chen crouched beside him, studying him like a specimen. You'll be human for a short time, Cale. Weak. Vulnerable. Long enough for us to secure you and the other escapees. Around Cale, other wolves who'd been hit with darts were collapsing, their bodies betraying them, their wolves silenced. No. This couldn't be how it ended. Not when they were so close to freedom. Cale tried to stand, but his human weak legs wouldn't support him. He was helpless, defeated. Dr. Chen stood, already turning away. Secure him with the others, and someone fix the damn generators. A roar echoed through the facility so loud, so powerful, it shook the walls. Finn burst into the room in full wolf form, larger than Cale had ever seen him, fury incarnate. Behind him came the escaped wolves, dozens of them, rallied by Mira, fighting back against the guards with desperate strength. The battle that erupted was savage. Wolves who'd been imprisoned for months, who'd been tortured and experimented on, finally had their chance for revenge. They tore through guards with brutal efficiency. They destroyed equipment with savage joy. They reclaimed their agency through violence, and Dr. Chen, her calm facade finally cracking, ran. Finn reached Cale, shifting to human form. Can you move? Not well. They hit me with something temporary paralysis of the wolf gene. Then I'll carry you. Finn hauled Cale up, supporting his weight. Everyone who can move out, now. The exodus became a stampede. Wolves poured out of the facility through every exit, disappearing into the mountains, fleeing to freedom. Behind them, the sanctuary burned. Someone, probably Mira, had set fire to the labs, destroying research, equipment, years of work. The flames consumed everything, turning Genesis Project into ash. By the time they reached safe distance, dawn was breaking. Cale sat on a rocky outcrop, his body slowly recovering as the serum wore off, surrounded by wolves he'd thought were dead. Mira sat beside him, thin and scarred but alive. Around them, other survivors huddled together, processing their freedom. How many? Cale asked Finn, who'd been doing a count. 43 wolves escaped, 15 different packs, some going back a decade. Finn's expression was grim. And according to what I overheard before the fighting started, there are 3 other facilities just like this one. This was just the northern branch. Cale's blood ran cold. They're doing this everywhere? Looks like it. Global operation. Big funding. Government backing. Probably. Finn sat down heavily. Cale, we just kicked a hornet's nest. They're going to come after us. After every pack, looking for revenge. Let them come. Cale looked at the freed wolves, broken but not beaten, traumatized but still fighting. We know about Genesis now. We can warn other packs. Prepare them. Fight back. Or, Mira said quietly, we could disappear. Scatter. Make it impossible for them to find us again. No. Cale's voice was firm. Running is what they want. They want us afraid, divided, easy to pick off one at a time. Instead, we unite. Every pack, every wolf. We become too strong to eliminate. That's, Finn started. Impossible? Maybe. But so was surviving Morning Ridge's massacre. So was infiltrating this facility. So was freeing 43 wolves from what should have been an impenetrable prison. Cale stood, his wolf finally returning, strength flooding back. We're survivors, all of us, and it's time we stopped hiding and started fighting back. Around him, the freed wolves began to howl, a sound of defiance and determination that echoed across the mountains. A declaration of war. And Cale, looking at these wolves who'd survived the impossible, felt something he hadn't felt since the massacre. Purpose. It was time to go home. To Sarah, to Ash, to the family waiting for him. And then it was time to finish what the humans had started. Chapter 10. Coming home. The journey back to Blood Moon took 5 days. Not because of distance, but because Cale refused to leave the freed wolves behind. 43 survivors, all in various states of trauma and malnutrition, couldn't travel quickly, so they moved as a group slowly, carefully, stopping frequently to rest and forage for food. Mira stayed close to Cale's side, still processing that her brother was alive, that her pack hadn't been completely erased. I thought you were dead, she said on the 3rd night, as they sat around a campfire. When I woke up in that cage, when they told me Morning Ridge was gone, I thought I was the only one left. You almost were. Ash and I were all that survived initially. Cale's throat tightened, remembering that terrible day. But now we have you back, and 42 others who deserve a second chance. What happens to us now? Asked a young male from a pack Cale didn't recognize. We can't go back to our territories. Most of them were taken over years ago. We're refugees with nowhere to go. It was the question they'd all been avoiding. These wolves had no homes, no packs, no place in the world that had moved on without them. You come with me, Cale said. Blood Moon will take you in. And if they won't? He paused, an idea forming. Then we'll build something new. A pack for survivors. For wolves who've lost everything but refuse to give up. You'd do that? Mira's eyes were wide. Start over? Build a new pack? Why not? Cale looked around at the wolves gathered in the firelight, broken but healing, lost but finding purpose. Morning Ridge is gone, but its spirit doesn't have to be. We can create something better, something stronger. A pack built on survival and loyalty, and refusing to let the bastards win. Finn, who'd been listening quietly, spoke up. Scar won't give you permission to split off. You're still technically Blood Moon. Then I'll earn my release. Or fight for it. Or negotiate it. Cale's jaw was set. But I'm not abandoning these wolves. They're my responsibility now. Around the fire, the survivors straightened. For the first time since their rescue, something like hope flickered in their eyes. They had a leader. They had each other. And maybe, just maybe, they had a future. When they finally reached Blood Moon territory, Scar was waiting at the gates with a full honor guard. And beside him, looking simultaneously relieved and furious, stood Sarah with Ash in her arms. The moment Sarah saw Cale, she thrust Ash at Elena and ran. She crashed into Cale with enough force to nearly knock him over, her arms wrapping around him, her face buried in his chest. You absolute idiot, she sobbed. You were supposed to come back safely, not bring an army of traumatized wolves and nearly die destroying an evil science facility. How did you? Finn sent word ahead. 3 days ago, we've been preparing. She pulled back, her gray eyes blazing with tears and rage and relief. Don't you ever do that to me again. Don't you ever make me think I lost you. I'm sorry, Cale said, his hands coming up to cup her face. I'm so sorry, but Sarah, I found survivors. My sister, wolves, who've been prisoners for years. I couldn't leave them. I know. She laughed, the sound watery and broken. I know you couldn't. That's who you are. That's why She stopped, swallowing hard. That's why Ash needs you. Why we both need you. Before Cale could respond, Scar cleared his throat loudly. Touching reunion, the Blood Moon Alpha said dryly. But we have logistics to discuss. You brought 43 refugees to my territory, Cale. 43 mouths to feed. 43 wolves who'll need housing, integration, training. I know. Cale gently released Sarah and turned to face Scar. And I'm not asking you to take them all permanently. I'm asking for temporary sanctuary while I figure out next steps. And those next steps are? Building a new pack. Morning Ridge too, if you will. Cale's voice was steady. These wolves need a home. I need a purpose beyond just surviving. And the world needs packs that are prepared for what's coming because Genesis Project had 3 other facilities. This isn't over. Scar studied him for a long moment, then turned to the assembled wolves. Show of hands, how many of you can fight? About half the wolves raised their hands. How many have specialized skills, healing, scouting, strategy? Another dozen hands went up. And how many of you are just dead weight who'll drain resources? Silence. Even the weakest wolves looked offended at the suggestion. Scar's lips quirked. Good. I don't keep useless wolves. Here's my offer. You can stay in Blood Moon territory for 1 month. During that time, you'll work patrols, construction, training, whatever's needed. You'll earn your keep. And Cale, you'll help me fortify our defenses against Genesis Project. In exchange, after 1 month, I'll release you and anyone who wants to follow you from pack bonds. You'll be free to build your new pack wherever you choose. It was more generous than Cale had dared hope for. And Sarah? Ash? Sarah is pack, Scar said firmly. But if she chooses to leave with you, I won't stop her. His eyes moved to Sarah. Your choice, she-wolf. Stay with Blood Moon. Or follow Cale into uncertainty. Sarah didn't hesitate. I go where Cale goes. Where Ash goes. We're a family. The word family resonated through Kyle like a bell. Not pack. Not obligation. Family. Then it's settled, Scar said. 1 month. Make it count. The month passed, in a blur of activity. Cale split his time between training Blood Moon wolves for potential Genesis attacks, helping the freed wolves recover from their trauma, and spending every precious moment he could with Sarah and Ash. The pup was growing impossibly fast at 2 months old. He was starting to babble, to reach for things with clumsy determination, to show the personality that would define him. He was curious, fearless, and absolutely stubborn about getting what he wanted. He's exactly like you, Sarah said one evening, watching Ash fight sleep with single-minded determination. Me? He's got your stubbornness, Cale countered, gently rocking the pup. Pretty sure stubbornness is a shared trait at this point. Sarah leaned against Cale's shoulder, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. Have you decided where we're going? After the month is up? Actually, I have. Cale had been scouting territory between patrols. There's a valley about 50 miles west. Defensible position, good water supply, enough game to support a mid-sized pack. It's unclaimed territory, neutral ground. How big are you thinking? The 43 survivors who want to come, plus us. Maybe 50 wolves total to start. Cale's eyes were distant, planning. We'll build slowly, carefully, focus on wolves who've survived trauma, who need a second chance. Make Morning Ridge's legacy about resilience instead of tragedy. Morning Ridge Doy. Sarah murmured. I like it. I was thinking of a different name, actually. Cale looked down at Ash, finally sleeping in his arms. Phoenix Pack. Because we rose from the ashes. Because we refused to stay dead. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. That's perfect. And I want you to be my beta. Cale continued. Co-leader. Equal partner. We build this together. Cale, I don't have leadership experience. You survived alone for 2 years. You saved Ash's life. You've helped dozens of traumatized wolves heal during this month. You're exactly what a beta should be: strong, compassionate, and unwilling to let anyone fall through the cracks. Cale met her eyes. I trust you, Sarah. With my life. With Ash's life. With our pack's future. Will you do this with me? Sarah was quiet for so long Cale thought she'd refuse. Then, yes, as your beta, as your partner, as, she hesitated, vulnerable, as whatever else you want me to be. Cale shifted Ash to one arm, using his free hand to tilt Sarah's face up. How about mate? Would that work? Her breath caught. Cale, I love you, he said simply. I don't know when it happened. Maybe when you appeared in the forest offering to save Ash. Maybe when you jumped that ravine trusting me to catch you. Maybe when you chose to follow me into uncertainty instead of staying safe. But I love you, Sarah. And I want to build this life with you, if you'll have me. Sarah kissed him deep and fierce, and full of everything they'd survived together. Yes, she whispered against his lips. To all of it. Mate, partner, family, yes. Ash chose that moment to wake up and start crying, completely ruining the romantic moment. Both Cale and Sarah laughed, the sound full of joy and exasperation and love. Welcome to parenthood, Sarah said, taking Ash to feed him. Where every moment is interrupted. I wouldn't have it any other way, Cale replied, meaning it absolutely. The month ended on a clear spring morning. 43 survivors stood at Blood Moon's gates, packs loaded, ready to follow Cale to Phoenix Pack's new territory. Mira stood at the front. Cale's sister, his second, the wolf who'd survived hell and come back stronger. Scar approached with the formal release papers, documents that would free them from pack bonds, make them autonomous. You're sure about this? Scar asked. Building from nothing is harder than joining an established pack. I've done it before, Cale replied. And this time, I know what mistakes to avoid. Fair enough. Scar handed over the papers, then offered his hand. You're a good alpha, Cale. Phoenix Pack is lucky to have you. Thank you. For everything. For taking us in. For giving us time to heal. Don't thank me yet. Genesis Project is still out there. 3 more facilities. Hundreds more prisoners. They're going to come for revenge. Let them come, Cale said calmly. We'll be ready. Scar grinned, fierce and approving. I believe you will. Elena appeared with Ash, now 3 months old, healthy and thriving, and handed him to Sarah. Take care of him, Elena said, her eyes wet. And visit sometimes. I'll miss the little troublemaker. We will, Sarah promised. Thank you for everything. Then it was time to go. Cale shifted into wolf form, massive and silver, alpha power radiating from every line of his body. Beside him, Sarah shifted smaller but no less fierce. And between them, carefully secured in a specially designed carrier, Ash made happy baby noises, completely unaware he was part of history in the making. The Phoenix Pack, all 45 wolves, set out toward their new home, toward the future they'd build together, toward hope. Epilogue. Emma 1. 6 months later, the Phoenix Pack territory was thriving. 57 wolves now called the valley home, the original survivors plus 12 wolves who'd heard about the pack and sought refuge. The dens were comfortable, the defenses solid, the community strong. Cale stood on a high ridge overlooking the valley. Sarah beside him, watching the pack go about their evening routines. Below, Ash, now 9 months old and impossibly mobile, was being supervised by Mira as he toddled around, exploring everything with fearless curiosity. He shifted yesterday, Sarah said quietly. Just for a second. I was watching, and suddenly there was a tiny wolf pup where my baby had been. Then he shifted back and started crying because it startled him. Cale smiled. He's going to be strong, like his mother. Alara would be proud. She would be, and so would Luna. Cale pulled Sarah close. You're an incredible mother, Sarah, to Ash, to every wolf in this pack who needs guidance. We're doing it together, Sarah corrected. That's what makes it work. Below them, a howl rose, not alarm, but celebration. Another survivor had arrived, a wolf who'd escaped from one of the other Genesis facilities. The network was growing. Word was spreading. Phoenix Pack had become a beacon for wolves who'd survived the impossible. They're going to keep coming, Sarah observed. Every wolf who escapes, every pack that falls, they'll come here looking for hope. Good, Cale said. Let them come. We'll never turn away a wolf who needs help. Even if it means we grow too large, Become a target? We're already a target. Genesis Project knows we exist. Knows we destroyed their northern facility. We're on their list. Cale's expression was calm but determined. So we get stronger. We prepare. We build something they can't destroy. And if they come, then we fight. Together. As a pack. As a family. Cale turned to face Sarah, cupping her face in his hands. I failed Morning Ridge. I won't fail Phoenix Pack. I won't fail you or Ash, or any wolf who trusts me with their safety. You didn't fail Morning Ridge, Sarah said fiercely. You survived. You saved Ash. You freed 43 prisoners. You built something beautiful from ashes and grief. That's not failure, Cale. That's triumph. Below, Ash's delighted laugh echoed up the ridge, pure joy, unmarred by the trauma that had defined his first days of life. Listen to that, Sarah whispered. That's what we're fighting for. The right for pups to grow up laughing instead of afraid. Then that's what they'll have, Cale promised. No matter what it takes. As the sun set over Phoenix Pack territory, casting everything in gold, Cale and Sarah stood together, two survivors who'd found each other in the darkest moment, who'd chosen love over fear, who'd built a family from loss. Behind them, the pack gathered for the evening meal, wolves from a dozen different packs, united by survival and hope. And in the nursery, Ash slept peacefully, guarded by Mira, growing strong in a world where he was loved beyond measure. The hunters would come eventually. Genesis Project would make their move. The war was far from over. But tonight, the Phoenix Pack was safe. Tonight, they were home. And that was enough. If Cale and Sarah's journey from loss to love, from survivors to leaders, from victims to victors has moved you, if their story reminds you that family is what we choose and build, not just what we're born into, then subscribe. Join others who believe that the greatest strength isn't surviving alone, but finding the courage to trust, to love, and to build something beautiful from the ashes of what was lost. Because every ending is a beginning. Every loss carries the seed of new hope, and every wolf who refuses to give up becomes a beacon for others still fighting in the dark. This is Phoenix Pack. This is survival. This is love. And this is just the beginning.